the question we want to answer today. I'm young, I'm 20 years old, I want to start a real estate company. How do I go about it? Should they invest? Should it be commercial? Should it be residential? Should they do fractional real estate? Okay, we're back. Yeah? Started? Ready? Thank you guys for coming. I know all three of you fairly well because we live in the same city and we have met many times, dozens of times. For the people who do not know you, I don't think there are many of those, but maybe we can start with Irfan uncle. Tell us a bit about growing up in Bangalore and how you came about and became this original gangster of the real estate industry.
I like that.
Where did you get that from?
That's quite apt though.
I like that. I like that. I love that. You know, Nikhil, I never ever thought that I'll be a developer or a real estate professional in whichever way. Of course, Bangalore, in our days, because I'm ancient, was a very, very sleepy old city. So,
Were you also born in Bangalore?
Yeah, I've been born in Bangalore, bred in Bangalore.
Parents moved to Bangalore?
My grandparents came in from Kutch Bhuj. That is about more than 100 years ago. My parents also were born in Bangalore. They studied in St. Joseph's. I studied in St. Joseph's. I did my college in the Commerce College in St. Joseph's. Graduated from, even those days, today kids, the moment they finish the school, the next thing they'll be looking at which uni to go, which part of the world they need to go and study. We never had such concepts. The only concept was, okay, after you finish this, what do you do next? So you have to graduate, you do that. And then later on, it was for me, I had a passion for numbers, I had a passion for law. So I did my stint in a year plus in the law college and then dropped out. And I did also an articleship for my chartered accountant, which I again opted out because I got sucked into my parents' business. So that's what happened. And that was fashion, menswear fashion. I made Nirupa's dad's wedding clothes.
Really?
That's right.
She wouldn't know about it because she wasn't there. So when her dad walked in, the whole family, we used to get all the coffee planters from different parts from this section. We used to get the industrialists, the businessmen, including the where we are sitting. Mr. Malya himself used to come and make his clothes with us.
On Commercial Street?
Yeah. And of course, a lot of VIPs. That's how we have that connect. We know all the who's who. That made things easy also.
So why did you think of starting a real estate company from...
Quirk of fate, destiny. This happened in the year 1980-81. We sold a family property. So I was maybe as old as Karan here. My dad and my two uncles wanted to sell that. They put me and said, you do the entire transaction. So that was way back in 80. So they said some Bombay developer wanted to buy it. In fact, there were several people, somebody from Delhi, somebody from Bombay. Finally, we chose someone. And then that entire process of doing the agreement of sale, getting the entire money out from the developer, and then again the reinvestment. The reinvestment, that was what made it all very attractive. You see, once the money came in, of course, my two uncles took their share, and we had to reinvest for ourselves and did something. And that in that quest of selling and buying, we got this little bit of taste of real estate where, we did some quick profits in some flipping over. And
what year was this in?
This is 1980. So that is a good 44 years ago.
Which property was this first?
Infantry Cross Road, where it's now it's called the Blue Cross Chambers. That was a family home.
Right.
So one led to the other. The whole thing started as a reinvestment. Even today you have the same model where you can reinvest and get the exemption for capital gains. So back then also, though the tax rate was much higher, which is now lower at 12.5%, people are crying. FEM has done a disservice by doing it at 12.5%. I believe whatever she has done is done well. Without indexing 12.5% on long-term gains is, I think, pretty decent. So those days we had to reinvest. For my uncle, one uncle, of course, took his money, did whatever. We didn't have any say on it. Between my father and my one uncle, we tried to do all that. So in that quest of doing that, we came to know about how things went about. Values were much less. All houses were sold for lakhs. And I bought my first plot for my own house in Nandi Road at 135 rupees a square foot. Today it's all thousands. People will say 23,500 or 33,500. Don't know what the rate is. That's how things were back then.
What defines the value of land, uncle? If today somebody says the value of land, let's say on this road is 30,000, 40,000 per square feet, is it the monetization capacity of the land that attributes that value to it?
See, now very different from what it was way back. Way back it was affordability and how can I, I can afford that and everything else. I know in 1973, my father bought a piece of land in Ali Asgar Road Cross. You know, what happened was...
Where that
76.
Elements restaurant is.
Yeah, see, what happened was that time we got the Urban Land Ceiling Act. 76 or 73, the act came in. So all the big landlords who had these huge houses, they had to quickly dispose of the excess land. So they converted them into plots. And that's how these layouts came into Bangalore. That's the advent. I mean, that's the historical thing about layouts in Bangalore. Now, what it defines is, it's depending on what's the selling. It's all about FSI on that road. It all depends on what's the selling price of the product would be and the construction cost. So that the entire way of calculating is very different now than back then. It's very different.
So you did the first land transaction 1980, 81 or 82. And then you made some money. And then?
And then one led to the other. We did trading in real estate for about 5 years.
Okay.
Then I said, this is too boring. We must really do something which makes a difference, which will be noted for. So I told my brother, I said, let's do there was no good office buildings in Bangalore. So ironically, I did not do my residential buildings first. What we did was, we said, I felt that office was a nicer way to do it. You're more known for it. You can either get rental income or you can sell Strata offices those days. And the office those days were very different from offices today. Today you have these large multinational clients needing hundreds of thousands of square feet. Those days, even an office of 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 square feet was big. Because who was the occupiers were professionals, small businesses, small industrialists and all of it. And from where did it change was in the late 90s. 1988, 99, offices changed. So we started building office. My first building was on KH Road, was called the Prestige Court. Then we did two buildings. One is Copper Arch on Infantry Road and the other is House of Lords on St. Mark's Road. Now House of Lords, unfortunately, we sold it and then we realized you don't maintain it, it goes to seed. In fact, we installed the first escalators then.
Right.
What
year was that?
88, 89, maybe 1990. Then that sea change, you see, then we started getting more and more opportunities on doing office in premium locations where you see we also invented this joint development concept where I told, in fact, the first one I did was my own father-in-law. He wanted to sell his family house. I said, do you have any use for that money? He said, no. I said, if you don't have any use for this money, don't sell it because money comes in your hand, it'll vanish. So I'll do this joint development for you. That's how I did this Copper Arch. So I invented that. I had to literally tell the lawyers how we had to do the JDA agreement. And then, of course, once you invent one thing, then from there, it's very easy to replicate, and it becomes better and better as time elapses. So that was the thing that happened.
So when did you structure it as a real estate company? When did that happen?
Yeah, 86 was the Prestige Estates and Properties and Prestige Constructions, two separate partnership firms were born. One was to buy land in, the other one was to do the construction in. But then finally it all got merged, became one firm, easier to operate. And then of course now we've got some 100 SPVs, that's a separate story. That you see, what happened is based on the need, everything changes, everything evolves. And of course we became a private limited company in, I think, around 2000. And then publicly listed in 2010.
And publicly listed and doing very well in the last 3 or 4 years. How are you all friends, uncle? I remember 5 years or 6 years ago, we were at dinner in Dubai in some restaurant.
Yeah.
And 4 or 5 of your competition, your competing real estate companies, you were all telling me that you go on one holiday together every year, you catch up. This is strange. This is something I have not seen in any other industry. How does that work?
But only in Bangalore.
See, this is...
not all over.
One holiday even I was there with them, I think. And I was like, this is weird. Like, what is going on?
No, it's not weird. You see...
All men with big egos and lots of money, 4 or 5 of them competing.
No big egos. Actually, ego is the one that kills you. See, I always said, if you learn how to bend, you'll not break. But if you're stiff, you can break. And we are, according to me, we are all in the same space, whether it's his dad or with her dad. Like I said, we grew up, both of us, when we got into this business, ironically, after I did his wedding suit, this, that, I was in my dad's shop making clothes and doing suits for people who want to get married. And this gentleman was a coffee planter. One day he decided to put up a building on Brigade Road, and that's how the word brigade came.
Really?
And Prestige came in from the store that I have in Commercial Street. So what happened was, we used to go to the same BDA office for one file. He wanted a change of land use for his Brigade Road property. I wanted to have a change of land use for my St. Mark's Road property. Residential to commercial, his industrial, some semi-public to commercial. So I always believe there's enough and plenty to do for everybody. That is how I believe in, and I think that's how we've taken that leadership. It's just that, okay, if he's got a client, even now today in leasing, when we are doing so much work, I'll say, okay, buddy, you've got this client now. The next one will be mine because your space is over. Or if we are doing residential, each one's got their own unique location, unique type of property. For that, I need not to have daggers. And one thing that we have learned in this city, at least, of course, I think now I work in many other cities. Even in Mumbai, nobody has come to trip me down. Fortunately, touch wood, that's been the thing. Because you have to know how to carry people along with you. And you should support. I've always supported. Wherever somebody is in a little bit of trouble, you talk to them and see how you can get them out of it. And if somebody is sensible enough, they'll listen for their own good. If you tell them something and they don't listen, then it's their bad luck.
The one thing everybody does say about you is, in social interactions and conversations, whenever a lot of people talk about real estate, they say Irfan is a man of his word. And that story has really permeated society at large. Where does that come from?
No, see, it's not, see, if you have the right intent, everything will go well. Now, otherwise, if you've got a wrong intent, you get the world's best lawyer to do a document and you want to somehow do something wrong, it will go wrong. And it's always, I've seen, if you keep up to your word, even if it hurts you, long term, it's a benefit. Short term, there may be a loss, or I would call a perceived loss, or something that you feel that. But then in the long term, what really happens is it's that you build goodwill. And I think all the developers in Bangalore, for that matter, that's why they are all sort of respected. There is that respect. So that is, I would say, worth any money in the world. And once that respect develops, business grows, everything grows, and there is a sense of, sort of...
Do you just think it was a way of doing business also back then? It was just on a handshake with a
that's how it
handkerchief
should be.
signature.
Yeah, or just
Like
if
no
you
need
say, then of course, you see now, today I have something called, when some landowner comes, I take out a book, I write down the terms. After it's done, I pass it on to my legal guys. And then afterward, that gets into one huge structure, document, whatever else. That is required legally for so many reasons. I mean, compliances, so many reasons you need it. But it's what you have agreed on is what is most important. And if you stick to that, there is that so much respect that comes in, so much comfort that comes in. And I think it's not only us, me, I think the others also who are in this business today, at least the larger companies, are following the same principle. Even her dad follows the same principle.
I think you have to, right? I think if you're selling somebody their home who's putting in their life savings with you, if you don't stick to your word and you sort of go off of that, I think word will get around, and I think it's a downward trajectory
that is
from
still
there.
below, Nirupa. I'm talking about, the larger transactions that you do.
Yeah.
Because what happens is you're tying up some land.
Yeah.
You're getting you're either agreeing on a joint development percentage or some deposit or whatever, or some specifications with that guy, and then you just go through. And then it just falls in place.
This is a conversation between four of us, okay? So don't expect me to ask all the questions.
Yeah.
You guys can...
I'm also
I thought you were
No.
finishing up his story first.
Yeah, then I will come to your stories, but you can also ask him questions.
Yeah.
How is it, uncle, to manage family in business? This applies to all of you. I know your brother, your father, your wife. I know Nirupa's dad. I know your kids, nephews, nieces. It seems to be a very... What was this TV show I was watching?
Succession.
Succession. It's like different versions of Succession in each of your households. How complicated is that?
So Succession is a show I haven't watched because I found all the protagonists quite annoying. So I didn't take a liking to any of them. But I think, like, if you look at it, right, most businesses are family businesses, right? 80% of businesses globally start off as family businesses, and then they get professionalized, and then they go public. So we all start off as family businesses, and then you have to decide if second gen wants to continue or not. So only, I think, I was reading somewhere that 36% of businesses get into second gen, and then maybe about 11 or 15% get into third gen, and maybe only 4% get into fourth gen. So I think the challenge is in like you were saying, managing egos or managing people and managing relationships, because you might have the perfect org structure, but if the human element is not looked into, then the disruption happens. The way we have done it is, my dad was very smart in the sense that he gave my sister and I, she's older than me, different verticals. And then we also have a cousin in the business, and we also have another family friend who's like a brother to me anyway, and an uncle. And then my mother was in the business, but all of us handled very different sections and verticals of the business. So there's no stepping on each other's toes.
But like every other family, when, let's say, 10 family members, being humans at the end of the day, like we all are, people get insecure, people get jealous, somebody gets more validation, somebody gets less. The next generation does not agree with the prior generation in the idealistic way of thinking, all of that. How do you cope with that and still stay together?
I think you should answer this, since you are like managing probably this at the highest level.
No, I think similar structure, what Nirupa just now enumerated, very important thing is this, what she very rightly said about stepping on each one's toes. So we have each one is doing their own thing, and they have the freedom to do it. Yes, but you're absolutely
I
true.
would,
Emotions, huh?
No, I would say that at least from our perspective, I've seen a break in the family thing. Like
Yeah.
my dad, his brother, and
Yeah.
my granddad split when we were very young. When my dad was building the business, he was also, I think, around 30 years old, and that split was a lot of ego. There was maybe some differences of opinion, miscommunication also on what was, the right intention or what, was actually happening. And today, me and my brothers are sort of coming into the business. So seeing how my dad is, I think, taking some learnings or context from situation that he went through and trying to figure out also the way it should pass on. And I think that passing on is extremely different in every single family depending on multiple factors. Today we are 3 boys, and there's no other brother or sibling of my father in the business, so it's maybe slightly easier. And we're all taking some interest in, building a part of the business.
It gets more complicated with every generation.
Yeah, it will get more complicated, but it also, I guess, depends on what type of intention, ambition the generation shows, right? There can be people who are not interested at all in coming into the business. How do they get viewed? How do they get treated being part of it? Or someone who's taking more extreme, a lot of initiative, and you can really see them putting a lot of effort in. So I don't think it's an equal, I'm not sure if an equals approach works in all situations, but it is important for one person, like the head, to make sure that equalization is happening to as fair as possible.
No, but in the end, if you look at it, everybody needs to have a certain level of maturity while handling other members. But also all our, if for lack of a better thing, all our wealth or our careers are tied with the success of the company. So if we are not mature about it, what's in the best interest of the company is in the best interest of all the individuals as well, right? So one key question to ask always is what's in the best interest of the organization. Like you were asking whether to do residential or office or whatever it is. You have to see what is in the best interest of the
company.
company.
How do you handle it? I mean, you're sort of also...
I'll tell you what, good thing is because of being listed,
I'll tell you.
Everybody knows their value. No, you're not listed. You should get listed, sir.
You should.
There's something called the minority rule. So if 4 of us are individually of a certain psychology, when we come together as a group, the psychology of the group is completely different from what we had individually.
Absolutely.
And 3 of us might agree and be broadly okay with whatever is happening. But if that one person who is the minority who disagrees vehemently enough, we will have to tweak the company or the decision of the group in a manner that appeases the minority. This happens with many things. Right? If you ask why is most meat halal today, why is Coke a certain way, why are kosher foods the norm and not the exception, you see it across the world in different products. So in your family or in Irfan's family, if he has 4 in the next generation and the one who is minority is very strong and very vocal about what he believes, how do you get him to go along with the other 3 majority who are more malleable in a way? That's a tough question, right?
It is a tough question. Fortunately, we don't have that situation.
Yeah, so right now, I agree. See, right now, you're also there. So everybody listen to whatever you say. All decisions are resolved then.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, we are also looking to have an executive council where the key members, decisions have to be done unanimously, and it's either convince or be convinced. And there's a way to do it, right? There's numbers, there's facts. I think first generation or OGs, as we call them, were more intuitive. And I think as the organization grows, you have to grow from a person-dependent organization to a more process-driven one. So then your numbers will come into play, logic will come into play, financing will come into play. There will be other factors. It's not, I feel that this is the best decision, right? We'll have to showcase it with logic, argument,
100%.
numbers, and hopefully it's a convince or be convinced
If you had
situation.
to start a real estate company that would thrive today, will the thinking of your generation work in that company or the prior generation? Binary question. You can't have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Would Brigade...
Prior.
Prior. I would say prior.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why do you say prior?
I would say prior because I feel like building a real estate company, you need a lot of risk-taking ability. Like if you want to,
So you need to
build
be
from
intuitive,
scratch
you're
and
saying?
go.
Sorry, I'm saying your generation.
No, you need to be intuitive.
No, I think his point is intuition. I have a couple of other points which I will add up.
Yeah, I think that today, maybe our generation is, thinks a little bit too much before getting into, stuff.
Analysis paralysis.
And in real estate specifically, I feel like you do need to take these bold calls. You do need to take a lot of risk. You do need to build a very strong relationship with, partners up front. And I think the previous generation was slightly better at doing that, I would say, if I had to start from scratch. But to take over a business and to build a business maybe from a platform or a foundation that it is at today, I would
It'll
say
bring in
our
more
generation.
processes.
Yeah, it's just more generation, more ability to tweak it and,
You're
have
saying they
ability.
had more risk-taking ability.
100%.
And I feel I've seen,
Also, was that because they had lesser to lose?
Yeah, 100%.
one is, yours is risk-taking, but I would say the way they work, like I've seen my dad work like long hours, 7 days a week. There is no break, but his work is his passion. And when I ask him, is it your passion? He's like, passion is a luxury, right? At that point in time, when he started, it was no choice really.
Are you passionate about real estate, Nirupa?
So growing up, I didn't think I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I've had to learn to love what I do right now. So if you ask me today, do I love what I do? Yes, I love what I do today.
But it's
been a journey. It's been a journey.
But because you learned to love.
I learned to love
It's
what
like
I
being
do.
in a bad marriage.
No, there's so many. Did I grow up dreaming of being a developer? No, and neither did Irfan, neither did our dads. You learn, when you see success, you start loving what you do. If you see constant failure, you'll hate even your passion.
I think
You know
that's
what I
true
mean?
about all passion.
Yeah, so passion cannot be your job is what I believe. Okay, so I have a different take on it. Passion
Do you
cannot
also
be your
feel
job.
like you're generally passionate about something, or your mind feels this is your passion, when you're a little bit better at something than other people around you?
See, there are two sides to it. If we just go back to the first part of the question, I have learned to love what I do, because if you don't love what you do, you can't put in the hours, and I don't think you can become good at it, because your desire to learn and all that won't be there. But I have a flip side. It's also, what are you willing to suffer for? Is this worth the suffering? See, it's not an easy business. I don't think real estate is easy, and I would say it is a lot of donkey work also.
Donkey work is the most difficult business to be in.
Yeah.
Most thankless job. And okay, we are in it. We thrive in it.
Yeah.
Like you said, we love what we are doing. And you see, what I love most about is you're creating something.
Yeah.
It's like an artist. Now, see, I see that lovely painting there. Now, that artist will be looking at that painting, looking at every stroke, trying to better it, making it nicer. So I think that's what we are doing. It starts from just that barren piece of land, and then you're creating, in a scale. It keeps changing with scale. And it's that creation, what you're doing and what you're putting up is what really gives you that thrill, that energizes you.
And
if I go to my
make good
site,
money
Passion is
doing it.
overrated, yeah.
if I go to my site, what happens is maybe you will be going through mud and dust and everything else. But to see it getting transformed, it just actually energizes you. But like Nirupa said, it is the most difficult business you can be in. Here, every single piece of land you purchase, you need to get all the licenses, some hundreds of them. Yeah, and then the most important part is you have the other part of it. You have to do salute to all the people that you need not. So that's
You have to learn to love all of that. It doesn't come naturally.
exactly. In fact, sometimes we as parents, we say, and then we say, how will our children be able to do whatever? Like when we talk about it, we are talking about you and my children. So it's a tough one. And then you have to have that mindset. If somebody is even bashing up, you have to have that ability to keep smiling and being nice and being diplomatic about it. Because if you're not, then again you're in trouble. So that's a whole thing.
I like what you said. Passion is overrated. It sounds like the intro line to Succession next series. But I would rather be... Okay, I'll give you two scenarios. Would you rather be passionately doing something which loses money or dispassionately doing something that makes you money?
Easy option B. I would please make the money, then I'll find some other passion to do.
Yeah, I believe that is true. I
See,
feel
Nikhil,
like
every project of yours can't make money. Sometimes you run into trouble. Sometimes there's you not sort of taken into account some expenses that come unforeseen. But I think no businessman, whichever business you're in, would like to lose money.
How good would you be at a dispassionate job? I mean,
know,
what output you like put out will never be...
So maybe there is no true thing such as talent or passion, but we all try a bunch of things. Whatever we are slightly better than our peers at, we start to believe that is our passion.
Like it.
And that is our talent.
It's more enjoyable, right? I mean, you want to be good at something. You don't want to keep...
Because we're all innately
failing.
very competitive, right?
Yes.
You guys are in a very tough position. I believe in society, the hardest role to have is to be the son or daughter of somebody extremely successful, famous, rich. Because you're always in this position where people look at you like you're entitled, but in your own head, you have the psychology that for me to find my own validation and respect, because everything you're born with is the status quo, right? That's not going to make you happy. If happiness is each time there is change, a positive change, it's harder for you guys to get it.
No, so I think that's a valid statement. I think we can talk about our journeys, but I definitely went through a bit of that when I first came into the business, because I was like, okay, my dad's known, he had a bit of a rags to riches story, and, you know, he's known as a visionary, very high acumen, can't find faults with the guy. And I'm like, how am I going to fill in those shoes, right? So it took me a while. And like I said, for me, it was a journey to be very comfortable, secure, confident in this role. Like it was a journey for me. I've been in the business now 15 years. And it was a journey. And I realized I can't try to even, like my role should not be to fill in his shoes. It'll take an army to fill in his shoes. I need to just fill in my own shoes and add something different, you know, that maybe he doesn't do. And to the previous question you were asking, what a company needs to grow from A to B is different from maybe what it needs from B to C. And so for me, it was, what do I need to do, or what do I need to do to help grow the company from B to C or C to D? It can't be what my dad did. There's no way in hell. I'm not in competition with him. I'm not trying to be better than him. I need to find what makes me
My
me.
space.
Yeah, what makes me me and what value I can add.
But when society tells you, not openly, but at some point your subconscious gets hit when people say, Shito got all this.
Yeah, silver spoon.
Doesn't that make you feel
entitled,
competitive
she's only here
even with
because-
your own father?
No. So the thing is that, okay, she's only where she is because it's her father, she's father's company. She got a leg up. Yeah, I did get a leg up, but I didn't screw it up. I was given a platform.
I'm working hard for it.
Yeah, we're given a platform,
Right.
and I can either screw it up or I can take it to greater heights. So there have been opportunities where nobody talks about those stories where the second gen has screwed it up, and maybe that's why they don't go into second gen and third gen. You're talking to us because we've been able to take it to the next level.
Generally, third gen screws it up, right?
Generally third gen, so I'm a little safe.
They have time.
I would say for me, it has been a defining angle to, you know, the path that I always like definitely wanted to pick, even from when I was younger, when I was in college, even to not jump in straight into the family business, to try to do something, even if it was small, like just set up, you know, a restaurant and do that. It was, for me, like a validation that I could do something without having to, you know, sort of like rely on the family business or you know, kind of what my dad's built. I think a big reason why I have like, you know, tried to like have a branch out also of the traditional real estate business with just focusing on WeWork and building that was kind of a best of both worlds, where under, you know, the umbrella and, you know, with the legacy, able to sort of like continue the legacy, you add some contributing factor, which, you know, hopefully will end up becoming as big or, you know, like will add something in equal parts, I think, to the business. I think that's my way of looking at it, where, and I am fortunate enough that I even got the, you know, the ability, the freedom to springboard off the platform and then be able to like, you know, do this, which has had its own journey. And, you know, touch wood, now that things are going well, I can say that, but there could have been, you know, very well a situation where it just went completely under, and then I had to like retract back.
We all have a chip on our shoulder. We have something to
In
do.
your truly unfiltered dream, is WeWork bigger than Embassy?
I would love it to be.
But is it?
Is it now?
In your unfiltered dreams?
No, definitely not.
What do you dream about, Karan?
What do I dream about? I dream about... I actually... I do believe that the competition is like healthy in some way, and growing up with three brothers, it's probably, you know, even more so across like everything that we've done. But we have like such a strong bond that it is like, you know, love in each other's success is probably the defining thing that like I dream about, which is, you know, we each are able to put or add something like to the family business. But what if it was
not like that and one of you could pick? Like only one of you would be picked to be successful, then what happens?
Between the three brothers? Yeah. Yikes.
What happens to me? Or who gets to pick?
No, do you still feel that way? See, you're assuming a scenario where there is opportunity for all three of you to be successful at different things.
Right.
What if there's only one thing and one of you can lead it? Then what happens? Because this is like a Succession kind of episode. I'm starting here.
But I think it's important for the person who is that to keep their ego aside, right? If you really, truly want like to continue the legacy. There are obviously like situations or people who will, you know, let that get to their head and, you know, completely move the other way, leaving everyone behind. I think there's two approaches to it. You can be the person that has that and keep your ego aside for the larger interest of, you know, what had come before and then what should be the situation later, right? Like we spoke about third generation sort of like deteriorating it, but that doesn't have to be the case. There is ways, and there have been enough families that multiple generations, even up to fifth or sixth generations, have built huge enterprises. I mean, you know, companies like Walmart and things like that in the US.
Not so many Indian examples.
No, but I feel like India is sort of where, and you know, my dad also says this, like where America maybe was in the 80s or 70s or 80s, where most companies were family businesses. They will slowly transition into, you know, being public. I think your world also gets to see how many are transitioning into that field. And then they'll get professional and you'll have boards and you'll have charters and structures and succession planning, and all of that will happen like it has in many countries. And China is another example where, you know, similar things happen where you don't really know the faces of those companies, but the wealth has definitely passed on multiple generations, right? And
I see a lot of wealthy people, wealthy on paper, techie guys, software companies, rich people in different industries. Nobody feels even remotely close to as wealthy as real estate people. Your houses, your cars, your planes. Like, why do real estate
I think
people...
it's like cash flow over valuation. That's the...
Yeah.
I mean, because like...
It's the best investment class. That's why.
Not really. You see, of course, at least today, the bankers also have learned the value of real estate because that's the only asset that can't go up in smoke. At least even if they have something to hold on to, which they can, if they hold on longer, they'll actually make money out of it rather than lose money from the whatever they have to recover.
You know, Uncle, that is what scares me most about real estate. Like, if I were to put 5 real estate developers in a room, the older they are, the more they will be forceful about this. But every single one of them will believe real estate prices can never go down, whatever happens.
No. See, it depends country to country, population to population. Now cut and just come to India. With the type of population that you have in this country, and there is still, according to me, a tip of the iceberg. There's still a lot more urbanization that has to happen. Lot more people who are aspirationally wanting to buy a home. Yes, there have been periods. Real estate always has its periods where suddenly price goes up too high, too fast. Then there's a plateau, and that plateau continues for a little while, where price neither goes down, doesn't correct itself, doesn't go up, or if somebody wants, that's why we say real estate is illiquid. You want to sell, there's not too many buyers.
What if the demographics
And then
change?
with the inflation, it goes up again. But with the type of people that we have in our country, the type of job creation that's happening, the type of industrialization we are talking about, and we are seeing it real. See, now in the initial days when we got into this business, who was I selling to? Who was my buyer? It was people who were retired, who had their provident fund, or who had sold some property somewhere in a larger city and the bigger city and came here with that little extra and wanted to buy a house. And the transactions were few and far between. Just this morning, I read that the maximum housing sales have happened in the last quarter.
Yeah.
Why is that? It's only because their demand is very real.
Can I make a counter argument?
Make a counter argument.
What if the demographics, see, let's say India's population is X. To retain that population, every couple has to give birth to 2.1 children.
Okay.
Replenishment rate. 40 years ago, we were giving birth to 4, 5 children per couple. Today, that number is 2.2, 2.3. In many states, it's under 2.1. The immediate effect of that will be at any given point of time, instead of having 4 generations looking for housing, we'll start to have 3. Because even the women who are giving birth at 35 instead of 20.
Correct.
Tomorrow, if we get to that point where India, like Japan, has a large percentage of our population which is older, and there are lesser young people coming in, and older people, I would assume, need lesser real estate. Combined with that somehow we buck the urbanization pattern that we have witnessed in China because of work from home and a bunch of different things. Don't these risks need to be factored into that dialogue of real estate will always go up?
Yeah. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen very soon. Today, not tomorrow.
In 30, 40,
Maybe
50
Wouldn't
years?
that have to do with
60,
anything
70
that's
years.
consumption?
Huh?
I mean, not necessarily just real estate. It's
See,
literally
like in Japan,
everything then.
I-
But I think
know.
as people are becoming more affluent, they're consuming more energy, they're consuming more FMCG, because that is essentially attributable to the fact that they can afford it now.
But everything is like, I want a better quality
See,
of life,
sir,
right?
now as of
Which
now,
the home
Nikhil,
is included.
the thing is, there is a shortage, real shortage. There's a real need. And by the time we have that, like it's just like our infrastructure. The population has grown, the business has grown, the development has grown, and our infrastructure is always trying to play the catch-up game. Now look at our roads, look at our traffic. It's not that infrastructure hasn't improved. It has, but the traffic has improved that much more exponentially. So it's similarly for us. You see, there is a real demand. And that real demand, it'll go. That is why just before we started this conversation, I was telling Nirupa, I think always what we need to have is an eye on who is my customer. Who can afford me? What type of pricing they can afford me? And that has to be from the mass. If that is my product and that is where I'm targeting, I'll have enough business to go around. Now, if I'm just doing very luxury housing, okay, that also I can do. But I should be happy to just be very content with that niche market where I'll do lesser revenue, lesser business. It's not that the business will not happen. It's not that there are no takers for that. There will be takers for that, but in a smaller measure. Okay, the satisfaction is like, is just doing something very, very unique, something special, and just keeping it only as a collector's item for a few people, or whether I want to do a product which is for the mass.
Sorry, if I may just
With the
jump in on
volumes.
that.
Yeah.
See, just prior to COVID, there was this whole thing of this, what you were saying, right? The new generation doesn't want to own a car. They're going to rent a car with Uber. Nobody's going to live in hotel rooms. It's going to be Airbnb. So there was this whole discussion and debate about whether people will buy homes or only rent homes, right? And now, fast forward to 2023 or 2024, we're seeing decadal highs. We've not seen this kind of demand ever. One reason, of course, is urbanization, what Irfan uncle was saying. Right now, urban cities are at 35% urbanized. Like 35% of the population lives in urban cities, which is about 480 million people. This is expected to go up to 40% by some 2030 or so, about 600 million people. Like, where are all those homes getting built? Indian developers put together probably put out in the top 8 cities about 450,000 to 500,000 units. But you're talking about 120 million people coming into the cities. The demand and the macroeconomics are so favorable to real estate.
No, I agree there is demand. I'm trying to predict the curve, the future curve of the demand. Are we looking forward 5 years and saying there's demand, or are we looking forward 50 and saying there's demand?
I mean, I think the volumes of the demographic is so high that it's multi-decades, right? I don't think it's like a 5-year situation. If we were, let's say, in a much smaller country where you were talking about, I don't know, 1 million, 2 million, 5 million people being the population, I think it's a different discussion. When we're talking about 1.7 billion and such a, only a small percentage at the upper pyramid and such a huge volume, like this tidal wave that's moving upwards, and, our aspirational want a better life are moving to bigger cities. It's not physically possible to even just build, that type of capacity where supply would outpace the demand. So the time it takes to just put up an apartment or like get the approvals and all that is like, 5-7 years when you talk about buying the land, getting all the approvals, then 3 years to build it, and then finally sell it, and all of that. It's such a long period that it would be impossible for the supply to.
Do you agree that real estate prices today for land and finished product are pricey?
See, I say we are being very, very conservative in our pricing. According to me, it has to be very sensibly priced, because otherwise affordability doesn't hit in. Moment you become pricey, the number of customers reduce, the number of takers reduce. So we have to balance both together properly. So that's why our margins are all very, very, very minimal. I mean, you go anywhere else in the world, the margins for real estate developers are huge for the type of trouble they take.
The last few years, I think post-COVID, there wasn't much of a price appreciation, right? In 2020, 21, 22, there wasn't too much of a price appreciation. Last couple of years, and prior to COVID, we used to see an average of 5 to 7% increase per year. But in the last couple of years, I think we've seen 20% increases, 25% increases, and that's mainly because of just the latent demand.
Sometimes more, no? 100%.
Yeah, I'm saying not 100%. But like say 20-25%, and that's a factor of 2 reasons. One is because there's just no inventory in our major cities. Like Bangalore has an overhang of 3.5 quarters, which is 9 months or so. And just to get projects approved, it takes 9 to 12 months.
18 months.
Okay, 18 months in some cases, but on average about 9 to 12 months. So there is like all the inventory that we have will sort of run out if we don't launch more and more projects. So that's the kind of demand that there is. So that's why
I think that is, I mean, all players have deeper pockets, willing to spend more. Lot more listed companies need to grow. So there is some amount of little bit of splurging also happening. Like not everyone has been as responsible with pricing and signing certain JDA terms or paying certain price for land and things like that. I think Mumbai, type of prices, the way the prices have sort of like gone up, it has a trickle effect of how much it costs to buy the land or buy fresh land, which is I think why also a lot of developers prefer a JDA type of structure, because it's much lighter. I can put stuff up much quicker.
I have a different take on this. We developers do the hard work.
Yeah.
We create the wealth for others.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Who are the others, Uncle?
The others mean my buyers.
And landowners?
No. Landowners is one side. You see, I've never seen any of my buyer who was bought for X, who's not gone 2X or 3X or 4X. So it's you see, we sell on plan. So what happens is somebody has to have the belief in us that we're going to produce whatever we are promising and deliver it within that time frame, within that spec. But if I've really done that, and which invariably we have been doing year on year, project after project, the end product, the customer who buys, maybe 80% or 70% buying for their own use. But there are people who are also investing, and their value just goes up exponentially. And these are the guys who really benefit. Even for that matter, land. You see, land is X about 10 years ago or 5 years ago. It's a different price today. So it's basically all the work that we do, the type of creativity that we do, and the type of problem that we go through to put up that development. The beneficiary is multifold. First it starts with the government, then it starts with my buyer, then it starts with everybody else and the user also. You see, so we should take pride that we are doing all the hard and dirty work, and we are responsible to see that we are creating wealth. I'm telling you, don't smile, because if you want any product from me, she's smiling because she's agreeing with me, unless she's disagreeing with me.
In the US and countries like that, actually everything is loaded onto the contractor.
Yeah.
The contractor, it's turnkey there. The developer just gives the branding, the marketing, buys the land. All the dirty work is actually done by the contractor. Here, everything is done by the builder.
Isn't construction outsourced even here?
Construction is outsourced.
But they only do
Some
construction.
companies are also doing the internal work.
Subcontract.
But everything is supervised by the developer. Everything is supervised.
Yeah, what I'm
Otherwise,
saying is
the
the contractors only do the construction, which even then if something goes wrong,
They
it's the
don't take
developer.
responsibility.
It's the developer's name that will get tarnished. So in the end, we are the principal employer.
But don't you agree we are
principal-
doing the dirty work?
Yeah, I
Don't you
did
agree that we are creating wealth
still
for others? Yes or no? Hasn't your
100%.
product that you've sold on
100%,
plan
Anka.
and what is now when it's ready?
so actually
hasn't
we
it
should be getting
exponential?
higher returns than we currently
Absolutely.
are, because
Agreed.
actually, if you look at the listed entities, the margins, like you said, profit after tax is very slim. It's very
Make
slim
what,
margin.
11-12% margin?
That's it.
That's in a good year. Otherwise, sometimes it's high single digits also. PAT. I'm talking about PAT.
Why is there a difference in that margin number between different companies, listed ones?
It's around the same. It's like maybe a percentage or two different. It's just operational efficiencies. It's your JDA sharing ratios. It's your procurement. How efficient are your procurement? Cost of
Which
construction.
segment also?
Yeah.
The question we want to answer today, before we finish our conversation, we always speak to young wannabe entrepreneurs. So we need to tell someone young, how do I start a company, anything real estate related or a real estate company? And the second question is, should they invest for people who have the means? Should it be commercial? Should it be residential? Should they do fractional real estate? So we want the answer primarily to the question, I'm young, I'm 20 years old, I want to start a real estate company. How do I go about it? If we were to start the journey of real estate companies, at some point it used to work in the manner that you would design a certain project. You would go to a bunch of people. They would give you money and they would buy. And with that, you would execute the project. When did that happen up until?
That's happening even now. See, that's how
Now
it's
there are
all.
rules where you need to have acquired the land, done
yeah.
ABC before you sell, right?
Yeah. So, see, the thing is, you're right to a certain extent. That's why everything went wrong in real estate also, when people probably thought they had the land, they thought that they had the approval, or they thought that they can get the approval. And then they went to a bunch of people and said, listen, I've got this land, I've got this approval, I'm putting up this building. And then, then everything became a nightmare, everything went wrong. That's where the confidence also was lost among people of real estate, and when we were all looked at as like those big bad guys. But now with RERA in place, that's how another factor that has really changed the market is that because there's a confidence now. As I said, there's that much more. It's now completely transparent. You have to have everything in place. Of course, the land first and then the approvals most importantly. Then you log in get your RERA number. That is very cumbersome. So what it has done is it has consolidated the number of players itself. And I always say that the people refer as big players, small players. I definitely don't subscribe to that. It can be even the smallest of the player doing one single project. If you do it well, do it professionally, do it sincerely, you can succeed. It's not that you can't succeed. Okay, in the olden days, you could just, if you did it sincerely and said, okay, I've got this land, I'm going to get this approval, I've already got it, I'm pre-selling. Even today we do the same thing, we do pre-selling. The only difference is today you do it with all approvals, everything in place, so there's nothing left for things to go wrong, except that you are midway of a project, somebody files a litigation against you for no reason or whatsoever. That is something that you can't predict. That can happen to anybody, anytime, anywhere. But those are like very small cases. But if somebody really wants to get into real estate, is a youngster, yes, you have to learn to start small. You have to learn to take the baby steps first. You see, if I have to come to your either I take the lift, it's not possible. If you have to climb the steps one by one, reach floor by floor, reach the top. You just can't go to the top from bottom to, it's not that easy. You have to work hard, you have to work for it. And if you've done some work, if you've got the confidence, you've produced it once, done it second time, done it third time, then there's nothing stopping you. I think that's how everybody started.
Yeah, I think everybody started that way. And I think the first one is always the hardest because you don't have an established brand. People don't know if everything is proper.
They don't know who you are.
They don't know who you are. But I think now, again, given that if you're RERA approved, that means most of the sanctions are in place and everything.
Not all the sanctions are in place.
All are in place. So then you can't start your project without getting your RERA
So if I'm
approval.
20 and I've managed to borrow 10 crores from a bank. I
Yeah.
want to start a real estate company. What do I do next?
I don't know. Real estate also is now so broad and there's just so many levels.
Can you define how broad? How big is the real estate sector in India?
Oh, I don't know the exact.
It's supposed to be
numbers,
$1 trillion by 2030.
If I look at
So say about 650 billion now.
Yeah, 1 trillion. It should
But
be
you
1
look at the
trillion by
bottom of the
2030.
pyramid, right? There are obviously, you can just do land aggregation as your sole part within real estate. You can be a full stack developer that is, doing everything. You can be just in the construction contracting business.
You can be just a broker.
You can be just a broker. You can be just doing property management. You can build prop tech on top of it. You can do, online brokerage, which is now, moving in that direction. So
What should I do? I have 10 crores I borrowed from a bank. We established that the real estate market is 600 billion in total. Residential is about 45%. Commercial is 10, plotting is 12, and mixed and others are 30%. I want to deploy my money and start a business. Give me 1, 2, 3 in the real estate world. What should I do? Should I be a broker? Should I be a...
See, you need to learn the business first.
yeah, I would say
So the
where's your
only
right
way to
win?
learn the business is dabble in property, buy property, sell
Is that
property.
how I should start? Buy and sell property?
Yeah, I think that way you'll get to know the nuances. You'll get to know how to read a contract. You'll get to know
I
who
would
to
look
trust,
at
who
an
not to
angle where
trust.
there's firstly not enough players. There's not all these big guys
let
in
me-
it,
let-
and then
yeah.
find an angle in there which
No, otherwise simple. Take a small property, buy a small plot. Either get into a JD with a small landowner who trusts you, pick up that plot and concentrate on that one development, design it well, and price it correctly, sell it to your bunch of customers. That will be your first beginning point. Once you've done that and you get the confidence and the customers get confidence in you, you move to the next. You see, now a lot of these smaller guys did start this way. Brokers started doing development. But what happened is, greed got better than them. Suddenly they had so much cash flow, one led to the other, to the other, to the other. There was no RERA also that time. And then another big problem was, don't follow the law. I call it simply, my building, my law, no building by law. On a small plot, we can build X, you do X into plus something, one more floor extra, whatever else. So that actually got
So you would suggest for me to start entering this industry, find a small plot,
in place,
get approvals,
follow all the
build
rules.
something and sell.
Exactly. Do it once, do it properly. Maybe your 10 crores will give you a couple of crores. That couple of crores, you again reinvest it back. It will slowly grow. It won't grow overnight. But what it does is, what will grow in you is your confidence and your brand. Slowly you'll build your brand.
And you would suggest I do a JD versus buying
JD is the
land.
best. JD is the best. Then only thing in a JD, what you need to do is you need to know how to manage people. If you're able to know how to handle your landlord, his expectations, or somebody who's known to you, that's a good thing. But if you buy, yes, all the problems also yours, all the benefits also yours. But then the amount of money that you require will be much, much more. Probably you can't really start with 10 crores. That's too small an amount today.
But if I want to start a real estate project afresh, will a bank lend to me to do this?
Not to buy land.
Not to buy land.
But for construction, they'll give you.
But if I find a JD partner who gives the land, then they'll lend money.
Yes, for the construction, they do lend money.
Yeah.
So I have a different perspective in terms of like, we need to know your risk appetite. I don't think there's a one size fits all, right? Like if you ask me, land aggregation has the highest risk, but also the highest reward. The people who buy land early, hold on to it, that's also a different business model.
No, but I'm trying to build an active job.
So
yeah. For active job, I would say, like if I had that 10 crores, I would also look to do a JDA with somebody who already has expensive land, maybe in a small CBD property. You can use your 10 crores as the equity you put in and then get the balance as debt from a bank to do the construction financing. And then hopefully once you get your approval, start selling to start funding the rest of the project.
You run the REIT program. Wouldn't you want me to invest in some prop tech company and try to build that
yeah,
instead?
I would say that my angle would be more of an operating entity within real estate, maybe less of a development entity because it's so competitive and so, murky also at the lower level to get into. So things around maybe energy, things around...
Energy for real estate?
For real estate.
Elaborate?
Right?
What would I do?
See, I think that 30% of all emissions is really from real estate.
Second largest emitter.
Yeah, is the second largest emitter. And if we need a transition as a company...
But that's more from real estate construction, not the living.
I mean, yeah, but also operating wise, there's a lot of consumption that happens, right? When physical people are using a building, whether it's residential or commercial, there's a lot of activity that happens, waste, solar, the need for energy.
I think the Prime Minister said 150,000 homes with solar roof.
Yeah.
But in a city like Bangalore, I live in this apartment, I don't have a roof.
Yeah.
But you have your terrace, right? That can be used to power all the common area light.
See, there are many things. It doesn't
But
mean...
how is that a business?
It doesn't mean just the generation. It can be
what he's
the
talking
management.
about
You
is
can build
the real
technology
estate itself,
around
not
it.
the ancillary stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So, you can, I mean, doing solar and building solar parks is also real estate, to a large extent. I mean, it is real estate, in fact. You buy land, you have to build on it, you have to
But the yields in that have
monetize
come down to 13-14% today. Like if I were to start off with X amount of capital, even if I do a PPP and earn, say, best case scenario, 13-14% on a solar farm, it doesn't cut it for me. I want to build a career in this.
Yeah,
See,
but
with
it
low-
depends now. Like with, and that's why I said operating entity, because I feel like 10 crores is too small, right? Whether building
So he can
technology.
start.
Forget operating entity.
Yeah.
Tell me broker.
So
Tell me something in
brokerage
tech.
is lowest risk.
Brokers, you don't need 10 crores.
Yeah,
you just
brokerage-
But can I add
is
some
lowest
technology there? Because why do I pay 2% when I'm buying and somebody pays 2% when they're selling? It seems unrealistic that would be the price after all this price
people are
discovery
doing that. There are
mechanism.
many
No, this is what
brokerages.
he mentioned, Karan mentioned, is a lot of brokers now have gone into tech. Now the conventional brokers are sort of become dinosaurs. All of them have used tech. All of them are sort of going on to different technologies where they are able to generate inquiries from customers, answer those queries, hire a whole lot of people, young kids who can go online, get the booking forms and actually popularize the product in a much larger platform. And that is what is happening, because the volumes that are happening today, the conventional agent probably today what he or she is doing is only the bringing a land to the developer and doing a land transaction. But the volumes that come today from a broker where we pay our 2%, and I think in our company, at least I know that for sure, it's 50% of it is done through brokers, because they become my selling arm and they are using only technologies and all new names are there. No one single old name in the market that is there. And the youngsters are doing it. So that is one thing where brokerage happens. So brokerage is the easiest business. The only investment again is in technology. But if you want to become a developer per se,
No,
my
uncle,
thing
I'm not saying developer. I'm saying I have this much money. I want to have
Some-
a return on the money, anything real estate. So if you tell
Anything
me
real
rent
estate,
office space and make it co-working, I can do that also.
No, are you saying you want the highest return, or are you saying you want to create a business?
Create a
Because
brand.
Tell me
wanting the
one for
highest
both.
return, I'll tell you, highest return is, if you ask me, you take that 10 crores, invest in land, do some plotted development, develop it yourself and sell it. I think you'll get the highest return. The next highest return would probably be with doing a JDA, find somebody who wants to develop the land, but why will they trust you if it's your first project? That you have to have the credibility and the sales pitch to convince them. The third, less riskiest and probably one with least capital required, is a brokerage firm. But then I don't think you will get your 2%, but is your network good enough to connect the two people? And it's a very, very competitive space, not only online.
What about something REIT related?
So REIT is, in the end, it's technology, right? And I look at technology as an enabler. So there are so many marketplaces that come up, right? We've seen our housing.com, Magic Bricks, so many of them are now No Broker, which has become a unicorn. But it's a very, very competitive space. Like we see at least like 50 to 60 companies that apply in this space per batch. So what will separate you from the rest? Are your algorithms so phenomenal? Hardly anybody is able to make a dent. They can make money, they can make a profit, they can be unit economic positive. But are you going to I don't know how many of them I would bet on to become the next unicorn.
One REIT company that you would put your money on if you had to do it all over again today?
So we did. So we've seen some good success in a couple of them, which again, one
best,
was
favorite.
Today I will say LiteStore.
What do they do?
That's Kishore.
Mahindran has invested, Axel has invested in them. So it's for retail. It's basically leasing a retail space, and it's for D2C. Basically, it's for D2C brands
This is
to come online. Online brands to go offline and to check the market space. So what they do is, typical retail leases are like 9 years, 6 years. They take the space for 3 years or so, and then they give it out to brands for, say, 3 months at a time, and they churn around the space 48 hours.
Retail.
Say the name again, they'll get a lot of traction after this.
I need them to get traction. LiteStore.
Right.
So yeah, so they've been seeing very good traction. It's a brand it's a concept I didn't think would see the kind of success that it did. So it actually started with these two founders from REIT, and then Raghu also joined them later.
Okay.
But then I think that hardly any disruption is being seen in retail right now. So this is the first of its kind. And I think they have the ability to scale up pretty fast.
And if I were to be starting a new business, they say the split today of sales in housing affordable is 27%, mid premium is 30%, and luxury is above 41%. Where should I focus?
I think that number 41% luxury is slightly wrong.
That's a recent number. I think I saw this, the Knight Frank report, I think
I don't
that
know,
you saw.
somewhere it's a little lopsided
Yeah.
because somehow some of these reports,
This
I don't
is the
believe
first
them.
half year of 24.
Whatever it is,
Yeah.
because that could be a little skewed. I would say luxury will always be in that 15-20%. He can vouch for it. Then this mid segment will be that 50%. And the balance will be
So,
below
Uncle, it's
that.
how they've defined it. I think in that report they've said
Luxury
over
is
1
1 crore.
crore.
Yeah.
1 crore. So
if luxury is
then-
1 crore, then everything is mid
Yeah.
segment. So you see,
Luxury
that's
is
why they said very
1 crore
clearly
and
what
mid
you're saying.
they've said
It's over
50 lakh
1
to 1
crore.
crore.
That's why it's showing. They've
focus
skewed
on
it.
I didn't see that
luxury,
They've
report.
put 0 to 50 as low and 50 to 1 crore as mid and 1.
Because now tell me, where in your company
Yeah.
itself do you get anything less than 1 crore?
Yeah, I mean, so I if we talk about luxury, or at least the way builders do it, and Uncle, you can let me know. But the way we define it is above 3 crores is probably
Luxury.
Between 1.2 crores to 3 crores is upper mid
I
segment.
would say we'll say 75 lakhs to 1 and 2
Yeah,
crores.
and mid segment is actually 90 lakhs to 1.2 crores. That's how we define it. And it's very hard to do so-called affordable housing. Affordable housing is defined at some 45 lakhs plus everything comes up to almost 60 lakhs. With the way land prices are going, it's really hard to do affordable housing. I think in that same report, it'll show that number of
I don't even know if
affordable
we'll
housing
get, like,
homes will
actual
have
numbers
dropped
for
by
that
50%.
segment.
No,
Because
actually,
it'll be
it
so
should not
unorganized.
go on price. It should go on the size of the house. So I would take it as, say, 45 square meter house or 1,000 square meter house or 100 square meter house. So it just
in
depends
Bombay,
on
you
that.
could pay for 10 square meter house also the same
Yeah,
price.
so it depends because the price can always keep changing. So I always base it on the size of the house. And then, of course, it's the overall affordability in terms of the ticket size. If you ask me, what is the fastest selling, what is evergreen, is that 75 lakhs to maximum going up to a 2 crore. It'll get lapped up within no time. Then after that, you move up of the bracket, you are going to between, say, 2 crores to 5 crores. It's a little more difficult. Then above that is for people like Nikhil, Kamath.
So your question is, I think the safest
Never
bet...
buy it.
He'll go to that 50, 60 crore wala.
He's so enlightened that he's past that also. He's like past the bikes.
Yeah.
Your safest bet is that 75 lakhs to 1 crore.
Yeah.
That's so-called mid-segment for us.
I was telling them recently I bought a house.
Yeah. How come you're a convert? You always said you wouldn't buy a house.
I think you should
No,
make it public that you bought a house just so people have some
he
faith.
can, he can be the poster boy for real estate now. Huh?
No, so the thing with renting, of all the advantages of renting, I think there is one disadvantage, that you don't have foresight as to when you can move out of the house. Like I had to move out of this house, whereas maybe I would have liked to live for longer in this house. And that not having the nuisance value of having to move felt like it made sense to buy one
Buy a
house.
house.
Yeah. And I think that's the primary reason that
But-
security of...
But let me ask you a question. So when you do your stock market analysis, right, you look at the health of a company, which includes, say, its balance sheet and how strong the balance sheet is. Now, for an individual as well, we also need to have a strong balance sheet, right? So-called balance sheet to have that financial security. So don't you think buying a home adds to the financial strength, security, balance sheet of an individual?
I feel like something like gold can give that to me. I hate the illiquid nature of real estate.
Yeah, real estate, as I told you in the beginning itself, it is illiquid at times. At times it can just disappear immediately, but it is an illiquid asset.
Yeah.
It's not
No, but
the
Nikhil, like
stock
something
market.
like this
But-
will always be liquid.
I feel
You'll
like-
probably
Not necessarily.
always...
Not necessarily.
I
In a
don't think so.
downtime, it won't be luxury.
I feel like-
Time, whichever time,
Yeah.
Nirupa, see, you must get the right buyer,
Yeah.
right price, and
Yeah.
there's a time within which it doesn't happen overnight. See, today if I've got X amount of stock, I want money tomorrow, I just call up my stockbroker.
No, relatively
At
speaking,
whatever
it's-
price you sell it, he'll sell it and give me the money in 3 days' time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That can't
relatively
happen in
speaking,
real
it is
estate.
illiquid.
I feel like even for this apartment, right? Like the places like this have fewer buyers as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
So the pricing is a question of if 10 people here decide to sell, then everything is haywire.
Yeah.
Then the pricing is very arbitrary in nature.
So supply and demand.
Yeah.
But that's like
The same thing for the stock market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if there
Same
are
way
too
for-
many.
I think stock market has more people. Like in a certain company, if 1 million people decide to sell,
Yeah.
then it makes a
Yeah.
significant
So
difference.
you
Here, 10 people decide to sell, I think the price is
But
up.
it's more like, again, then it's like
It's
startup
not
investing,
necessarily
right?
1 million people. One person holding 1 million shares will make a difference.
But in the stock market, I can buy and sell without paying 5%, 6% stamp duty, which
That's
makes
right.
price
There's no
discovery
transaction
very,
cost.
Yeah.
very inefficient in real estate.
Yeah, that's the only thing I would say that makes it illiquid is the transaction cost of it, and of course your long-term capital gains and things like that.
Yeah. Taxation is better in equity
Taxation.
markets.
True.
But that brings
But
me
how?
to...
Yeah. But the question is, how often do you want to flip a house? Also,
No,
Why-
that is a
you know?
nuisance. But see, that is privilege for me, which I'm cognizant to. I can afford to buy a house in 1-2 cities and forget about it and say that in a year I'll spend X amount of months here and there. But for most people,
Yeah.
that is not the case. You're making a very binary decision. Should I rent? Should I buy? If I buy an apartment, I'm stuck.
But some people Airbnb it in not India because it's not as mature a market, but say in Europe or US, it's a
Airbnb
very
is the best
mature
thing to
market.
do.
It's a
I mean,
very
apart
mature
from a
market
hotel.
to stay in it whenever you want or
You
give
mean
it out on
someone who's
rent
bought
whenever you
it and
want.
then Airbnb?
Yeah, I mean it's a business like families. Retire, having 6 to 8 Airbnb homes because they're making their money work for them without staying in
But
that
that
apartment.
return on investment really, that they're doing in Bangalore itself.
I think
Yeah, but it's
nobody
not as
makes
mature.
money from buying a property and renting it. It's still what 3% rental.
No, short stay, because it's
residential
short
rental
stay,
yield.
it'll be
4
like...
to 5% max.
Yeah,
But
between
because
3 to 5.
Airbnb is short stay, it
Yeah.
is slightly more, maybe closer
But
to 8%.
then you don't have occupancy throughout the...
Yeah, but
Overall, I would say your returns, even if you say a 65 to 70% occupancy, I think the returns would be 8 to 9%, sometimes 10% depending on the market, because it's short-term rental stay. But in long-term rental stay, it's what you said, between 3 to 4%.
But if you were to look at the interest rates and inflation right now, you account for those two, that return is negligible
not
or
in
negative.
India. India doesn't work.
Yeah, but your underlying value of the asset is appreciated.
But if you make the assumption that real estate will always keep going up in value, which is an assumption I have not made. I feel like...
You see,
not saying
that's why I'm a dinosaur. I've seen it grow from here, from this thing to going through the roof. I never imagined. So I said, if I was Rip Van Winkle, I would have just kept this huge tract of land, forgotten about it,
Yeah.
gone to sleep,
Yeah,
and come
exactly.
back about after 50 years later, and the value would have been exponentially more. There was no need to go all this circus all the time.
Yeah.
No need to do salam to anybody.
That's why I said land aggregators make the most
But
money.
the biggest risk there is if you come back after 50 years, don't know whether your land will be encroached or your property will be occupied by somebody else or there'll be some other claimants. That's a big risk that you take.
So,
And another point I'll make
Yeah.
is, I feel like making money can't be that easy.
It's
Like-
never easy.
Like I know in my industry, I've been sitting in front of a terminal for the last 20 years, every day, no holiday, all of that. When I look at people who made money of holding land and forgetting, like some farmer bought 20 acres on the border of Delhi at some point of time and left it.
Yeah.
Or cryptocurrency, people bought something and forgot about it. Today it's worth 10,000 times what it was. I don't know if that doesn't sit well with me. That's how people have made money
I
in
mean,
real
it's a
estate.
risk
There's a
reward.
very
In land.
few.
No,
Not
but-
few.
but it's risk reward,
Landowners, crazy number of landowners have made incredible amounts of money.
But there are also
They have,
people
yeah.
who have got screwed and encroached.
That's what I'm
and-
saying.
So if
Wrong claimants.
Yeah, there are loads of those also, which that I think we were talking about a stat where some percentage of all litigations in the court system are land.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So-
Somebody was telling me that 70 to 80% of all court cases are land
Yeah,
related.
so it's not. There are many people
yeah,
who are,
I mean,
who are screwed.
it is high risk because, like you said, anybody can jump and say, "Okay, I own a parcel of this land." If you put a fence or a boundary after your property, somebody can come and break that fence or break the boundary wall. But So I don't think land prices can necessarily go up or should necessarily go up every single year, right? But if you look at it over a long period of time, and if I'll give you a couple of examples, like that what Uncle was saying, when we started Brigade Towers on Brigade Road, it was 200 rupees a square foot. Today that same area could be 55,000 rupees a square foot or even, 60,000 rupees a square foot. And that's like a 250 to 300x jump. And if you look at the stock market or the Sensex for the same period, it wouldn't have jumped as much. There's another example, since you're in South Bangalore, in JP Nagar 7th phase,
Very
Brigade
close to where I
Millennium.
live, yeah.
We bought land there at say 50 rupees a square foot. Today it's 10,000 rupees a square foot.
Right.
So it's still a 200x jump. Whereas the Sensex for the same period was probably say in 2000, 6,000 or so, and today it's say 80,000. So it's just a 13 to 14x. So if you look at it over a long period of time, I don't think land will ever decline in value.
Okay, so for people like us who didn't have money and very recently came into a little bit of money, actual money, most of it is like virtual. Like if I have to buy a house, I have to buy a piece of land, then I have to construct a house. If my company earns 100 rupees profit, I pay 25 rupees corporate tax. I'm left with 75. Promoter of that company, I have to take that money out to then buy a land. I pay dividend distribution tax on the balance 75. Net, I've paid 52, 53 rupees on my profit already as tax before I take out my money. So I'm left with 47 rupees on my 100 rupees of earning. Then I go to a landowner. He will say, I will not take white money. I want some cash component. Then I have to spend 10 rupees to convert my white money into black money and then buy the land. And then I start building a house.
It's an extreme case.
But the taxation
again, you see
problem
now
is real.
another thing is you see
Nobody
now,
takes white.
But-
In land, actually now things have changed because the taxation rate itself has become very reasonable. See, there was, at once upon a time, there was that expectation to get black money, to get cash, but that all has changed drastically. And the more the white economy that you're in, the better it is. You sleep more peacefully. You do business properly.
So, but
Not
at
so
some
difficult.
point, because your money, like you said, it's paper, it's virtual. At some point, don't you want to make it like your intangible money tangible?
Yeah.
Because it's honestly,
Absolutely.
in Bombay, the guys who are buying your 100 crore apartments are all people who have made money in stock market,
Exactly.
private equity guys. So at some point, don't you want to make intangible tangible? Because for me, I'm like, dude, I don't know when the stock market is going to crash.
But I want to
next.
make it tangible and transient. I want to make
How
it...
can you make it
REIT,
transient?
I can buy a
units
gold
in a
bond.
REIT then.
I
You
can
should
buy
buy
a gold
REITs.
bond.
Yeah.
I mean, the REIT is the best option then, at least for
there it takes care of your liquidity, your transaction costs are quite
and you get
low.
the benefit of the...
You get a
like
7%
dividend.
return on a REIT. If you're investing in a REIT, 90% of the income has to be distributed and it's tax paid. And then unfortunately, it's again not tax second time. So you get tax paid money into your hands. So when the REIT structure did come in a few years ago into the country, I thought that was the best reform that ever happened for commercial property. Till then, we were doing strata sales of office.
Yeah.
And we used to, even today I'm managing about 3,500 customers who have invested in me, with me. And it's like an unstructured REIT. They bought office property only with the intent to get rental income. Of course, they have to go through the whole pain of registration, paying the stamp duty, paying their property taxes. And then because we manage it as a unstructured REIT, fortunately, they don't have to have that problem of vacancy and brokerage and other things. But that I don't think there's no other company, or maybe, I don't know whether you're doing that in your company, but...
What's strata sale or?
No, not strata sales.
Fractional.
But then managing it as an unstructured REIT where you lease it out and then sublease
we
it.
do
We
that.
do
We have
asset
to do.
management also.
And all that, it's very, very few exceptional companies are doing that, and that's a big win.
Why
but it's
haven't
very
REITs?
difficult, very, very difficult to do it. We've stopped doing it now because it's, it's quite difficult to manage people and everything else. But I believe REIT is something that has changed, is to change the landscape of office property. It does three things. One is it keeps your office building intact, keeps it fresh, like how if you walk into any development in anywhere in the world, in either Singapore or Hong Kong or Boston, New York or London, they all, even 20, 30-year-old properties look brand new. Whereas here, after 5 years of you handing over the property, they've deteriorated because of the infighting within the society, the management is not there. So REIT does help. And I believe if REIT is worked out well, there'll be many, many office properties, parks that will look brand new even after 30 years of they getting ready.
You guys have a REIT.
Yeah.
They do have.
Yeah.
But it's not really taken off at scale in India, right? REITs?
There are 3 REITs.
There are 3
REITs in
REITs
India.
now. I think that the education, of these buyers and everyone of why the REIT is the more efficient vehicle rather than still owning and saying, this is my office floor, I own this floor over here, is just starting to happen. And also a lot of the mutual funds and all of that also now, putting in money into that directly. So
It's more,
have you seen the last...
It's more institutional than retail, right?
Yeah, everybody,
That's why
we've seen
it's
the
not
last...
very...
Hardly any retail.
Yeah, so it's not very...
Because the investors have really not realized the potential of the REIT.
That is not happening. It's happening now. If you see
Tell
the
us
last
now,
3-4 years.
educate now. Why are REITs good?
So I think everything that Uncle just said, which is you get a tax dividend income, constantly. You have the ability to diversify your risk across like a much larger portfolio and not have any vacancy risk that you might have if you own like a single property or, a tenant paying that. You have a professional management team that is, managing it, making sure that the asset value of the portfolio continues to increase. It's growing also because they have to also, continuously buy and acquire new quality assets. If you've invested in a quality REIT, you know that the type of assets coming in also have been vetted and are actually in the marquee locations that will continuously like grow. So I think it's like removing that entire murkiness, entire amount of like stamp duty, things like that, all the taxation that comes with it, and the hassle of having to manage it yourself if you're not from the real estate space. You just, buy that and you can enter as low as whatever it is, right? I think it's like $1,000.
15,000 or something.
Yeah,
10,000
$10,000.
So if I buy the Embassy REIT, I'll make 7%
And the stock appreciation, right, that it might have, which as a REIT, it's not going to be. It's more of like a steady annuity type of income. But India will see higher appreciation, I would say, than foreign REITs or like, the US REITs and things like that. So...
And what do you think about fractional real estate?
It's the same. I would say that a REIT is fractional.
It's
like
an
a large
unstructured way. But you see, there's one more advantage, which Karan hasn't told you. For a developer, we need to churn capital. Now, if I have a certain amount of critical mass of office real estate or retail real estate, I take it into a REIT. Now, I become the manager of that REIT. Like you're the manager of the REIT, that means you're getting a certain fee for managing. I need not be the owner. Instead of fractionally selling my space to 100 people, what I do is I can sell a certain equity, a certain percentage of that to the public or to the institutions. And as and when I need more and more liquidity, like in a listed company, I can keep selling my units. I get my liquidity. If I don't want the liquidity, I keep it. So that, for a developer, it's a big advantage as a REIT.
It's
For a
become a
developer,
good,
it's like a natural
It's
exit.
a vehicle.
It's
It's
like
a
an exit
vehicle for exiting. So like you also have exited.
Yeah, we develop in one
the
and
REIT
then
is under
exit.
your name.
Correct.
See, you're the manager still. So whatever happens, you're still getting a certain
fee
for it.
Yeah.
So it has a dual advantage. Now, fractional ownership, if there was no REIT, that was the only way if anybody could participate in commercial real estate. But I would say with the REIT in place, this fractional ownership is very difficult to manage. You see, we as a company have sold undivided share of
Is that the
floor.
originator of fractional
But
ownership?
then
Now it's called
that's
fractional
very
ownership.
difficult because what happens is one generation changes, another, there's a newer buyer. For the first guy who you sold to, you have a relationship. The second guy need not know you. He would have bought at a much higher price. His expectation on
and it's
return
quite
is different.
unregulated right now.
Very
So
unregulated, very difficult. See, people
So you
management.
make a JV for each property?
That's what these guys are doing.
It's not a JV. When you're selling to multiple people. Then what happens is, since everybody has bought it with the intent of leasing out, you are again leasing it back from them and releasing it to the end user. So we make a sort of a arbitrage on that. But what we do is we manage the whole system. We manage the system in terms of making sure there are no vacancies. If there's a vacancy, we make sure that we fill up the space almost immediately. And if there's a hit, we take the hit. So what happens to our original investor is they are very comfortable. Listen, I invested X, I'm getting so much and my money is growing. And then whenever I want to sell, obviously property value has gone up and I get some return on capital also, apart from getting the monthly income. So it's a win-win for them. It's only, again, it's a huge amount of managing people. If you have the right mix of customers, right mix of people, it goes on smoothly, goes on well. Like during COVID, there were many vacancies. My finance guys came and told me, sir, we are not getting any rent, there are vacancies. What do we do to all these outflow that you have? I said, keep paying. Moment you stop paying, there'll be panic because the people who have invested are actually invested. I know for a fact that some are only living on that. Their livelihood is running on that. Moment you stop the flow, there'll be such a big panic. Each one is going to come and create a scene and they'll be really in sort of panic mode. As it is, there's panic going on for lives and this panic will go on for money. I said, keep paying. So it was a little hole on the pocket. But then when things became better, rents became better. So I had to tell, listen, we took the hit. So now you can't expect the market rent. And for us, so we have to make up that deficit somehow or the other. People understand that. So it's a healthy relationship. But I think in the long term, best is to do a REIT structure, educate people like Karan said, and allow them to invest in the REIT instead of institutions. Get the retail investors into it. It'll be a win-win. In fact, your REIT value will be much higher.
Like Strata is a fractional real estate.
Yeah, fractional.
Right? There's some regulation that has come out that allows
So SEBI has come up with a small and medium-sized REIT, and I think it's to get, because fractional ownership guys are still in the so-called unregulated space. They
were
want
in
to,
the SEBI sandbox.
It's like
right?
SME
Yeah, so they
IPO.
want
It's
to
like
get these
SME
guys
IPO
as a small and into the SEBI regulation so that they can now monitor and have similar structuring, like, you know, the sponsor cannot be the same as the manager in terms of facility managing the property. 90% of the asset has to be leased. All that structuring is going to come through, which wasn't there for a fractional ownership REIT.
Would you bet on that business model today? Because then I can pick, I want a part of UB City.
Yeah.
Versus a REIT which has many properties.
Yeah, it'll be single
I wouldn't, because you're
property
still
based.
then limited to one asset versus in an actual REIT. You know, I'm distributed across
It's a
geographies.
bit like buying a mutual fund and buying a stock.
It's
I mean, obviously.
to some extent. Yeah.
Very nicely analyzed.
Some people might want to buy stocks.
Only, I like
that's
this
same
talk.
as Strata then, right? Then you might as well just go, if you like a
But
certain
I
building.
can't buy the entire company of which I'm buying one share.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, but if you like that particular
It's
building,
not,
but yeah, you're talking about
it's like,
units.
would you invest in like a much smaller business, or would you invest in like, you know, a large diversified business? I think it's less
He's
about...
analyzed it, no, mutual fund versus a
Risk
particular
reward
stock.
ratio. If I'm so confident that the price in UB City will go up 80%, whereas Bangalore commercial will go up 20%, then maybe I want to take a punt on UB City.
Possible.
Maybe.
Do you think, like fractional real estate, I was talking to Venkat, I called him up today in the morning and I was like, tell me some questions to ask which are non-obvious. And he was saying, in a few years, all real estate will become so commoditized that 4 walls will be 4 walls and they're similar to 4 walls, that real estate will become about services as a play. What do you guys think about that? Like, it'll be, okay, there is KFT. It won't be about the 4 walls that I live under, but it will be about, do you add a mall which is attached to this? It'll become about the movie theater which is down. It'll become about the badminton court, about maybe
The
event.
facilities.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that where we are as WeWork and like what we are seeing has in some way, shape or form already happened in commercial real estate, where commercial real estate is very different from residential. It's basically just plain floors. Okay, residential, you still have, design, and people have designed homes and things like that differently. But office is largely commoditized at that grade A-ish level, where most assets are similar. There might be change of floor plan and things like that. Companies or people today are so focused on the human experience that they're having in the space that we see like operators and service, a service layer, hospitality layer on top of it is becoming like a driving factor. And we're doing it even on the traditional side, within our parks, to have community engagement events, to have F&B spaces, to, we do our own property management also, so that adds that service layer. So I think it's definitely, something where if I'm coming and experiencing that space, or I need to live in that location for so long, I want an experience also on top of it. And which is why maybe for the previous question also, I, talk about an operating company or like a service layer on top of real estate, because I think that's finally where the pyramid is going, right? Is across commercial, across residential, warehousing, data centers even today. You have operators across all of these segments. And in commercial real estate, maybe what we are doing is an operator. What Four Seasons or Hilton did and, hotels is that. What Manipal is maybe doing in hospitals is that. You'll want a brand, you'd want an experience layer, you want a service level when you come into it. And you'd prefer that over maybe going and trying to do it yourself, or just kind of going with the older model. So
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Four
So,
walls?
so if I add to that, if you look at it from the residential side, what are people looking for once they come to a builder to buy their home? One thing we are adding is, say, we'll do your interiors for you, right? Because honestly, doing interiors in India is not like doing it in the US. In the US, it's like a weekend job. You move, you go to IKEA, you buy your stuff, you do it yourself, and
You
you're
do
done
have
over a
IKEA here
weekend.
also.
Yeah, but here it's like I need a plumber, I need a carpenter, I need a interior designer, I need a lighting consultant.
Why is it like that?
Because it is still fragmented. It's not very mature. And like I was saying, contracting in the US is a turnkey job. And it's, like you said, it's even more commoditized. It's all DIY because labor is also expensive. Here, you can afford to pay for multiple people. People's level of customization is also very high. So the kind of experiences people are wanting is a one-stop shop. I'll buy from the builder. They will also do my interiors. If I need to resell the apartment, they will also do the rental for me. Whenever I want to resell, they'll manage the property. If I have like this place, if you have a banquet hall, they will service it. I can have my parties there. So everything is becoming experiential.
Will it go much further? Will they take care of the tuition classes that my son needs?
We are taking care of enough as builders. But I'm sure see, I'll tell you, when we run some of our clubhouses, right? So in the clubhouses, you have your Zumba classes, you can have yoga classes, and why not Hindi tuition also if required, right? Now, coming back to office, like you're saying, it's more experiential. We all do our own facility management of our properties. And I'm telling my FM guys, hire some events people into your team, because office is just not office. People are coming back because of the vibe. Now, how do you create the vibe? Oh, I need a brewery, or I need different kinds of F&B services. I need to provide a link to Uber or Ola so that transportation becomes easier. I need to have comedy nights. I need to have music nights. And somebody...
So is that a good business? Because you're saying in the US, everything is turnkey around interiors.
Turnkey for construction. Now,
Even for interiors? If somebody starts it in India?
Yeah.
There are players that do it, but it's just, the quality is never...
It's more expensive. If
Can
you
they do
ask
it
me,
over a weekend like in the US?
No, I don't think so.
Why is that?
Labor is
Everything
not
is
as
very
skilled.
fragmented.
Education of that labor is not there. They don't use
Indecision. The customer himself or herself
That
doesn't
also.
know
Minimum.
what they want. So if they are decisive, it's that much more easier, simpler. But like you said, you see, today even selling a home is just not the four walls. Because that concept of four walls entering the house underneath the staircase, that concept has gone long ago. What everybody looks in for is for experience, whether it's office property or for that matter, residential property. Experience in a residential is the open spaces, the landscape, the facilities that you have, and the backup services, whether it's interiors or property management. Now see, we got into this property management long ago only to make sure there's somebody to be a punching bag for the customer. And today that's become a huge top-line business. And more so in office, Nirupa very rightly said, we are doing hotelization of all office spaces. If people are coming back to work, it's because of the activities that we've brought in. It's about, see, today, my guys come and tell me, listen, we need food, we need a microbrewery, we need all of it. So that's how people will come in there, not only for the working and plus they're paid well, so they can spend that money. So that's what's happening today. If you don't have all those facilities, your park becomes a complete flop show. So it's very important to hotelize the entire experience. And that is, today it's getting more and more demanding.
So in some of the skyscrapers, if you go, wherever you go in the world, right, all the tallest skyscrapers have a rooftop bar, like a fancy rooftop bar. So when we were doing World Trade Center, it was the first in Bangalore. It was in Malleshwaram, and it was not known for an office destination. People were like, why are you doing office here? It was the first office building in that location. So the way we sort of popularized it was by creating a rooftop bar called High Ultra Lounge, which we created to sort of position, I mean, of course, World Trade Center itself has its own positioning, but to make it popular with the rest of the city. Otherwise, only the people who go to office there know about it. Like everybody knows Orion Mall or a retail space because you get 1 million customers a month. But office, only those 10,000 people who work in a particular space might know it. So when you do the hospitality element, it poshes it up. It premiumizes the entire building also. So like in the US, right, wherever you have a Starbucks, the rental value of a certain neighborhood might go up. In the US, Starbucks may not have similar such impact here. But it's the same thing. Wherever you have high F&B, you can add to the premiumization of the building itself.
And people are willing to pay a premium for amenities.
Not willing to pay. Your occupancy, if you don't have it, the occupancy doesn't happen. The client doesn't, the first requirement of the client is, do you have this? Only then they lease out the space from you.
Yeah, so a new strategy is to have lease out the F&B first and say, okay, I have these cafeteria guys coming, I have this coffee shop
and
coming.
Then your client comes, so it's not the...
Lease out your gym, this is the crash player, this is the gym operator. And so they get an idea of the positioning and then it's easier to lease it out.
So when I'm in Mumbai, right, whenever I'm spending time there, I see that all the properties are from fragmented developers. It feels like only Bangalore developers have been able to go pan-national in a manner, whereas Hyderabad ones and Mumbai ones and Delhi ones, barring maybe DLF, have not been able to. Why is that?
So I don't think too many builders have been successful going pan-India.
Yeah.
I think...
Have you guys gone pan-India?
No. We look at real estate as a very regional game because I feel like the further away you move away from home base, more leakages, harder to sort of oversee. And also each state in India is like a different country. The rules are different. And there is a bit of learning curve that happens in each state. So we have said that we will focus on, say, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, and some of the tier 2 cities in those markets and try to go deeper, get a larger market share in each. Even the players that have gone so-called pan-India, it's limited to maybe 6 or 7 cities. I don't think you can go to beyond that just because there's a drain on bandwidth, on time, effort. So I think you can do 6 to 7 cities if you really want to focus.
You can name the players like on your hand. And
who are they?
They haven't
Prestige.
Not all of them have
Prestige
like
is-
succeeded in
you
that
should
sense
talk
also.
about it.
No,
Okay.
I'm
Of course.
listening to you. First,
Yeah.
I want to
Is it
hear
a
you
factor
speak.
of who knows which politicians? You need to know so many to be pan-India?
Not
No, I
really.
don't think so.
Not really.
You have to have the execution
That's the thing.
capability,
You see,
right?
It's all depends on your access to land. Yes, very rightly put by Nirupa, is every city is a separate country. When I go to Kerala, I said this is a separate country. When I go to Mumbai, it's a separate. If I go into Chennai, the whole nuances are very different. Hyderabad, nuances are different. But we have moved away from tier 2 cities. I've done work in Mangalore. Yes, it's a lovely city. Yes, it deserves some good buildings, developments, all of it. But the overall appetite market is too small for the type of effort. Effort is the same. From licensing to execution to delivery to marketing. The effort is all the same. But you don't get the volumes. Now, if you go into the larger cities, the metro cities, so we've also restricted ourselves to Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Mumbai, NCR. Now, these are the places where the demand is real, where it's always evergreen. There is a requirement that comes in all the time, and even the pricing and everything else can be balanced. Yes. Now, the only thing is you have to learn the nuances in those cities. You need not know any politician or an official, but you really need to know your business. You need to do a proper market study and say which micro market at what price your product will sell. And you should be fortunate enough to be able to access land, because land is a raw material for all of us. Now, if you don't get land don't get land at the right terms, I'm not compulsive. There's no need for me to do business for the sake of saying I exist in so and so place.
Like you've gone to Mumbai recently.
Yeah,
right?
it has to make financial sense. In fact, for me also, it's not something that I can boast and say, listen, I'm too intelligent, I went to Mumbai. No. What happens is we started, there's some person who we knew who really said, I've got this project here in such a prime location. He was my customer at one of my apartments here in Bangalore, and then he came and did his sales pitch. Then we looked at it. Then we thought that, this is doable. It was 300,000 square feet in a Pali Hill in Mumbai. And we thought that we can't go wrong there. I said, even if we go wrong, it's not going to be a big hit. So we started looking at it small. So we, with a lot of trepidation, lot of debate, lot of thought process, we committed. And it was a redevelopment. So really the amount of capital that had to be deployed wasn't that so much that you really could have punctured a hole into it.
Can you explain, Uncle, briefly what is redevelopment?
Redevelopment is an existing old building where the building has become old. The existing people who are the owners of that particular development, they call it society in Mumbai, they want a newer place with that much more bigger facilities and probably since the FSI has changed, they'll get that much more built up area extra. So that's how the redevelopment starts. So more apartments, more square footage, and most importantly is better plumbing, better lighting system, better vertical transportation, and better parking. So of course the quality of life improves, better facilities also, and by being there as the old society, they get that incrementally higher square footage, which either they can sell back to the developer or keep it for themselves. They get a slightly larger home. Like when we did that redevelopment in Mumbai, I'm not giving 1-for-1, then nobody is really. So it has to be 1/4 into 0.3 or 0.4 or 0.5 times more. So if I've got a 100 square meter house, if I get 130 or 140 square meter house, my house is going to become a little larger. It's going to become newer with better finishes and better fittings. And obviously what happens is the sweetener is, while this is going to get built, I get my rental, I move into another alternate accommodation. The builder pays the rental and the rehabilitation cost and all that, and they come back. The only thing is they have to have the confidence in the developer that he takes it up and completes the development within the stipulated time as per the specifications. I have seen, in fact, I have picked up subsequently, many deals have come to me where these redevelopment projects have started and they've not fructified. And now we've gone there like a white knight and tried to save a lot of things. So one project led to the other, to the other, to the other. And now I'm doing some few million square feet, 6 million square feet plus of office and a few million square feet of residential, which I never imagined that I could. I have to pinch myself every time to remind myself, am I really doing this? But it is the most difficult territory to operate in.
Why is that?
The laws are different. The premiums are different. The approval fees are all huge. Because unlike in Bangalore, we are like innocent children here as compared to there. You see, what happens is there's some base FSI. You have to learn the tricks of the trade. And that base FSI there is either 1 or 1.25 or some from there it starts. Then everything else that you build on has to be paid for, whether it's premium FSI or whether it's TDR.
And this is an industry, right? Buying FSI and selling it?
All that is in Mumbai. It's a big industry. Not only TDR, it's also the municipality gets huge. This is what I was trying to tell our authorities here. You do this premium. What happens is you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for the city, because when you're selling premium FSI, what happens is the local body gets a whole lot of money. Today, the Mumbai municipality is the richest. They get tens of thousands of rupees as fees. And that is plowed back into the infrastructure. Today, if you've got a C-Link road or the other expressways and everything else, and that so many X amount of flyovers, it's not that they've gone, okay, they may be having a certain proportion of loans, but the rest of it is all coming from the money that is generated from all these approvals. Here, they have not learned the game. This is a golden opportunity for you. You make it viable, you will get crores of rupees as money for your municipal body, local body. Then you don't have to go with the begging bowl. And you do apply that money sincerely onto infra. So it becomes a win-win.
So if two things for the government people watching, two rules they can change in Karnataka, what are they?
Karnataka, simple thing is, I think they are doing it and they should do it quickly, is streamline your TDR rules. The issue TDR is the fellow who's losing land, instead of getting money, gets a piece of paper, which is 2 times the value of his property. It's now linked to guideline value. Now it's a windfall, according to me, the land loser, and he should take it gladly. Only thing is, product should be marketable. Now, where the land loser lost confidence is in between, like Nirupa said, 8 years it's in limbo because of some stupid thing that happened. And it's now still in limbo. But if they make that product marketable, if they allow the buying and selling, once the TDR is issued, do it sincerely. Give it it's already the rules are there, 1:2 times. And issue the TDRs as quickly as possible. Lot of land can be sort of acquired for road widening or for any public purpose or whatever else. The second thing is, bring this premium FSI. Now the debate was always, they say, no, if I bring premium FSI, TDR will be hit. Or if I bring in TDR, premium FSI won't sell. I said, man, let the market forces decide that. Premium FSI is also based on the guideline value. So there's not much of a difference. So basically, okay, they said 0.6 times of the base FSI, whatever is there in that area, you can either load, now I gave them a formula, either load TDR and premium. So I said, do it as 0.3 times premium, 0.3 times TDR, do a blend of both, or 0.2, 0.4, whatever, or just leave it for market forces. Just say 0.6 times, either use TDR or premium. Things will work. And, the municipality will have a lot of money in their hands. They'll get liquidity. You see, till you don't do it, you don't know what the benefit is. Once you do it, then you know the benefit and the pleasure that comes.
Very interesting. Another thing, innovation in real estate first principles. How an apartment is today. I was reading this book, Bill Bryson, Home. I don't know if you guys have read it. He talks about the evolution of home, how we got a toilet, how we got a dresser for the first time, how did we come up with the concept of a bedroom which is different from a living room, why do we have a living room. If one were to extrapolate and say the last real innovation in real estate from a structural lens, maybe Corbusier apartment complexes. Why has nothing changed beyond that? Why do we still live in homes with a living room, a dining table, a bedroom, a bathroom, and a kitchen, all bifurcated with walls? Why is that?
No, what would you want?
Yeah, that
I mean,
still
what
works.
more would you want?
It still works, right?
It could be anything, right?
I think a home is like it's that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It's like solving for a very basic primal type of need, which is just security, feeling safe, feeling like, where you have, when you come back from the outside world, that you have a sense of security, safety. So I would say largely it's across cultures very similar. If you see Japanese interior architecture to Indian to, something in the West, I mean, the fundamental things are always taken care of. I want to cook somewhere, I want to have somewhere where I can put my head down, I need to, use the toilet now. There are different sizes, formats and things of
And
that, but it's just about that security, I feel.
Post-COVID, you have a new
And
room
this
for
office.
offices. But there are
Hate that
some...
room.
Yeah, but there are some... Sorry?
I said I hate that too.
There are some innovations in the sense, like we're talking about homes for the millennials and the Gen Alpha or whatever, who don't want to cook as much, right? So then I feel like it's going some of these places where it's
No kitchen.
built to suit, no kitchen. There's a communal kitchen because people are lonely, right? With as and when technology is seeping into our lives, they're getting more lonely. So they want to now create communal kitchens so that they know their neighbors. Otherwise, many times people don't even know their neighbors. But in terms of apartment, in terms of living room, kitchen, all that, I think it's still very much required. People
But
want
can't
that
it change?
privacy versus...
Can't it change?
It can, and I think it will over time. Like she said, first of all, like kitchen has become like getting more and more like redundant. The more and more the youngsters will say, man, why the hell should I? Why should I cook? Okay, some people love cooking. Some people just dwell into that. Again, it's about creativity. You love painting, you love doing something else, you love cooking. But otherwise, generally, I would say everybody is so busy in their lives, they'll say, listen, man, if it's a small little space where I can heat up something or whatever else. So even I question this. You see now, our architects used to design every bedroom has to have one toilet. Now, in the 80s, when I went to UK, in a what
Communal
I would call,
toilets.
not even, it's even a row house, there used to be only one toilet and 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms. And here, we are supposed to be a very poor society, we can't afford, and our homes are, so what we used to, I said, man, if you have a 3-bed, why is it necessary to have 3 toilets? Have 3 bedrooms and 1 toilet. Make the bedroom slightly larger. Make those 2 toilets. I mean, one could be a common one could be where the owner of the house or the boss of the house sleeps. So that we changed that concept. What it did is made the house slightly more smaller but more usable. Now, if you remove off basically what you want a home for, you want to get in, you want to have a nice comfortable bed, you want a nice comfortable toilet, that goes.
Is that what you want from a home?
Sir, for me, the most important thing in any home is you have to have a comfortable bed and a good toilet. But that's what I was saying. What's changing now is a lot of my customers want that balcony. They want some space where they can go out
Especially
and
in
take a deep
Bangalore.
breath.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference. Yeah, especially in Bangalore because the weather's so good. But in a very probably crummy weather, you wouldn't want a balcony at all because you can't step out on it. If you go into a Dubai, which is 52 degrees, what will I do with the balcony? But here, we stopped doing the balconies because again, it was about the size of the house. For me, as I said, it's the size of the house, not in terms of pricing, but in per square foot, but in the overall ticket size of the house. So the balcony came, that means so many more square footage I'm building, so that I have to charge the customer that much more. Yes, it will evolve. Now, I don't know whether you can need to have a separate living room and a separate dining room. It could be one composite space which can be used for double up as both. It's more so, listen, I want to invite some friends home, guests home. But then if I'm not cooking at home, the question of entertaining them at home, unless I'm catering it from outside, unless I've got somebody else to come and get the food and cater it. You see, today you Swiggy it or you whatever else you do, it comes in minutes.
Sorry, another trend with the luxury homes is the 2 kitchens, right? The show kitchen for the guests and then one for the staff or if you're catering a lot for the caterers to come in.
What do you think is working more in society today? Say his dad is projecting X, your dad is projecting Y. Like, I have this really favorite philosopher, psychiatrist. His name is Jung.
Okay.
He says that we are all like wine. We are a vintage of the year that we are born in, and hence what we believe in changes. Like Irfan uncle believes in a certain thing because he was born on a certain year. I was born in 86, so I believe in some things about life. So does Karan and so do you. What kind of projection is working as a factor towards, for the lack of a better way of putting it, getting more deals done today?
So I think there's no right or wrong. According to me, there's no right or wrong. I think the way his dad is a reflection of his personality, and the way my dad is a reflection of his. And that could be because of how, like you said, they've been brought up, or the value system of the family, etc. Now, I think the way you run your company will also attract certain kinds of investors, okay, or home buyers. Like everybody has a reputation. In the end, you know, it is, some people will look for certain attributes from a customer perspective. Okay, I'm putting my life savings, you know, I want to go with a reputed, maybe conservative builder. But sometimes if you're looking at a more luxury product or if you're looking for different aspects. So I just think whoever you are will attract different segments and different kinds of investors also. Maybe certain things are risk-taking is associated more with, say, flashiness for some cases. So you'll attract a different type of investor and customer, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, it's also who do you want to partner with, right? Like I will, if I'm maybe up against someone super obnoxious or, you know, extremely flashy, I will automatically retract and not try to avoid partnering with that person at maybe like all costs. But there are some people who are attracted by that and some people
like
who,
your dad was able to handle Adam Neumann. Like not everybody can handle an Adam Neumann.
Tell us more about Adam Neumann. So Adam Neumann stayed with Karan in their house for a week.
I heard.
Yes. I mean, I won't say too much, but...
And his new company is kind of bringing together home in a different manner, right?
Yeah,
Communal
I think it's
spaces.
like adding a service layer or like a brand, or trying to add a younger brand maybe to residential real estate in the US and, you know, leveraging technology and doing all the engagement stuff that we spoke about. Adam is, I would say, the greatest salesman in the world. That's what I was, telling you as well, where he had, it's one of those few people that you meet, I think, like in the world where you can feel the energy, like, from having a conversation with him, or you can feel that there's like some amount of uniqueness in that individual. And there's, I think his ability to think huge and actually take that risk was something I had never seen in many, people, and got to meet a lot of people of like that caliber, I would say. So very few have like stuck with that nature, but
do you find similarities between your dad and Adam Neumann?
I think so.
He also
little
is
bit.
a risk-taker. Little bit. From a risk-taking perspective, 100%. 100%. And
he's good at
like
sales.
A visionary
good
perspective
salesperson.
also, definitely.
Inherited, passed down to you and your brothers?
I don't know. I would say split amongst three of us. I think.
Who got what?
Who's the biggest risk taker in your family?
I would say that's still me, I feel, on the risk-taking side. On the storytelling side, maybe my youngest brother is like, has that humor and that ability to build a quick relationship. I think my middle brother is like a lot more structured. Aditya is like a lot more structured and like process-driven. So I would say it's split. I don't think any of us have got all of the qualities in like one. Also. Yeah, and I don't think that will happen. And our mom has actually influenced us a lot as we were growing up. We actually grew up with I mean, my parents got divorced when we were like, 16. So a lot of our upbringing was actually also with my mom. So our real like experience, or at least mine and Aditya's real experience with my dad to in a close proximity has been like post-college, more from a work environment. Not that it wasn't there before also, but I would say real close quarters and like learning and all of that would probably be in the last like 10, 15 years.
How is the relationship between you and your sister?
Sister's very good. I think when we grew up, this regular fighting over who has control over the remote, what do we watch, all the silly stuff, who goes to the bathroom first. But I think from a work perspective, we went to the same colleges in the US. Somehow older sister, so I just had to follow her footsteps for the most part till grad school. But I think work-wise, touch wood, we haven't had any sort of arguments in all these years. But I also think that's because we have completely different domains. She doesn't get involved with what I do and I don't get involved with what she does. But we have a need to know on what's happening in both the spaces. But yeah, right now, if there ever was something, couple of times when there's been a decision that both of us have an opposing view, we just have to go talk to my dad and he sort of sorts it out. And I think going forward, it will rest with us to have the emotional maturity to make sure we resolve it in a amicable way.
For a lot of women who are watching this show, gender roles in society have changed today drastically.
Yeah.
Man is no longer the provider, woman is no longer the comforter, or the way in which each partner used to compromise has changed, flipped. For somebody who is an operator of a company as large and successful as yours, is that burden borne by your marriage in some way?
What burden are you referring to? The switching of the roles?
Yeah, it's not easy.
To some extent. See, if my husband was also heading a large public listed entity, I'm not saying the marriage would sort of suffer for it, but maybe the children would. Because both of us traveling, both of us not being there, I think the children would suffer. So right now, I think, see, in many marriages, the woman is taking like 80 to 90% of the household burden and the kids and the work and everything. I think initially when the kids were young, it was still, I was handling it. But now, after being married for, almost 14 years, we've had to sort of divide up the responsibilities and it has to be 50-50. I'm not able to. If I have to travel for road shows, I have to go. If I have to travel for conferences, I have to go. But we try not to both go at the same time. So there is a give and take. I can't be like, my career is more important than yours, because everybody has a role to play and everybody has something they feel that they need to contribute to this world. And just larger doesn't mean more important also. Just because, my husband is
not to you guys, but you live in society.
Yeah.
And society projects their opinions either vocally or subconsciously, one way or the other, right?
So no opinions given to my face, but I would have to say that my husband is probably one of the most secure men, Indian males, because at some point, it is a known fact that obviously, he's a single entrepreneur. This is a public listed entity. Yeah, I probably make more than him. So not many men would be comfortable. It takes a very evolved and secure person to be comfortable with it. And I happen to have found one of them.
I've met him, great guy.
Yeah.
And you guys do all these like healthy things together and all, right?
We used to.
Triathlon, run for 40 kilometers.
Our first date was playing basketball together. So I think there was a love for sport that was there. But he does.
Who won that?
You really have to get into that. Is that important? The important thing is we went on the second date.
She cycled like some 100 kilometers, ran for 20. What is that competition?
So that's the Ironman.
Yeah, you did the full thing, right? Or half?
I did the full Ironman.
Swimming, cycling, and running.
How much of each?
3.8K swim, 180K bike, and a 42K run after that. And you have to do it within a certain time period. In my race, it was within 16 hours or so. And going back to your original first question, right? Like this thing of being given things on a silver platter. one of the reasons I'm into fitness is because fitness can't be given to you. It has to be earned. And nobody can take it away from you. Nobody can say, oh, she became an Ironman because she's her father's daughter. You have to work hard for it. Yeah. And it comes with certain characteristics, right? It comes with, okay, I'm not disciplined all the time. So, but during that training time, I had to be disciplined. I had to work hard. I had to have good time management skills. I had to give up a lot of fun things.
Only because you're such a good friend of mine, I'm going to push you a tiny bit.
Sure.
Do you know when you feel strongly for something?
Yeah.
Of all the things we've spoken about, you brought this up.
Yeah.
And when you're feeling about what you're talking about, there's a tiny tinge of an accent.
Tiny tinge of a?
Accent.
Accent?
Yeah.
Like what? What else apart
I
from
just heard it. But why did you bring this part up amongst all the conversations we had till now?
Because it tied back with what we spoke about first. But because I'll tell you, it has become a part of my identity almost. Because I go around talking about it so much. And it's become a part of my identity. And it's something I sort of had to fight for because...
What has become a part of your identity?
This becoming a triathlete. It's very much part of my identity now. And
is it also because it gives you validation in a domain where your family does not exist at all?
Yeah, possibly. It's my space where I'm not, I'm not riding on the coattails or success of my father, and it has everything to do with my abilities and qualities and nothing to do with anybody else. And it goes back to the original thing of wanting to prove yourself sometimes as worthy of being in a certain position and a certain level. So it does, I've also thought about it a lot. And also, sometimes people have sort of said, oh, where does she have time to, like I've been spoken to in public settings, where do you have time to run your company if you're running in the park all the time? So I have to come back and be like, I run way before you wake up, so don't worry about it. But yeah, I felt like I had to fight a lot. I know what I went through to do that, It's, you had to give up a lot. And then even my dad would be like, focus on your work. Why are you spending time on triathlon training?
He must be more worried for you.
Yeah, came out of concern, I don't know. But of course now, he's happy about it. But there were a lot of ancillary benefits, even from a work perspective for me because of that.
Unfiltered, what do you dream about? You don't have to be so unfiltered. Yeah, professionally.
I'll keep it to cross the censor board. I have two dreams, actually. I have two dreams. One is, of course, on a professional side. I'll talk about it from a professional side. One is, of course, taking this company to being not just, big. I don't know, biggest is my dream, but definitely the best and how we can go about doing that. But sometimes I also wonder, at the end, you feel like you're on a hamster wheel. It's quarter to quarter, year on year. It just never stops. Every day it just never stops. And I'm like, at the end of it, what is the purpose to all of this? That getting a little philosophical.
What is it?
So I have thought about that a lot too. And I've realized that the purpose of life is that there is no purpose. It is whatever you make of it, right? There is no purpose to life. Like
nihilistic.
Yeah. You wanting to be the biggest is okay. You not wanting to be the biggest is okay.
Inherently, we all want to be better than our peer group, in whichever way.
But that is to satisfy the ego, right? Like if you let go of everything and you really think like what is important to you. So I actually listed out a few things. I said, okay, how do I spend my week? What is important to me? Who are the people important to me? I think we all finally drill it down to, boss, if the relationships around us are not okay, like parents, kids, 2-3 close friends, siblings, we are not okay. I don't think we'd be happy people. I don't think success can come at the cost of, say, relationships. But when I was drilling down my week, I realized that the time I spend with my kids is 12.5% of my week, which is a really small amount for how important they are to me. So it was almost inversely proportionate. Like the amount of time I spend with my mom and my dad and my kids is inversely proportionate to how important they are to me. So I was actually thinking, what is the purpose of what we are doing all the time to be on this treadmill and not have time for the people we love the most? So sometimes I'm like, you know what? You should just go and be on a beach and just relax with the people around you. But that is but I don't know if I'd last too long there because inherently I am also very competitive. I am ambitious. So for me, for the company, right now it's only growth. We're thinking of growth. But sometimes when it gets a lot, long days, you don't see your kids for a while, then you think, hey, are we on the right path?
And you keep flipping between that and this.
There's no choice. I'm on this path. I've chosen this path and this is my path. But it's to keep understanding what is important and coming back to what is important.
Very honest and nice.
No, very correct. I mean, all your thoughts are very relevant, very
Yeah.
true.
Right. You guys want to take a break before the next part? Yeah?
No, I think now I have to run.
Whenever you run, we'll continue, Uncle.
Yeah?
Yeah. No rush.
A few moments later.
Okay, we're back. Yeah?
Okay.
Started? So, Irfan Uncle, I wanted to ask you first about malls. You guys started Forum Mall, where I used to go in Kormangla back in the day, the only place with a PVR theatre. For somebody starting off in the real estate industry, can you explain the financials of a mall? Does it make sense? How important is a multiplex to a mall?
See, apart from the financial sense, as I said, the creativity is what gets us. I, in one of my holidays, traveled to South Africa, Durban, Cape Town, all these cities, and I saw these small size malls where you had the multiplex on top, even got the good fortune of even going to cinema there. And overall look, feel, the entire size was looking to me as very doable in our country, in our cities, rather than what malls you used to see in the US. Of course, Dubai didn't exist at that time. So one thing led to the other. Came back to Bangalore. I had tied up this land next to my Prestige Acropolis, where I had signed up with them to do either an office space or to do one more residential development. And those days we had what is called the Urban Land Ceiling Act.
Can you explain what that is?
That is promulgated by Madam Indira Gandhi those years to say anybody who owns more than 1,000 square meters of land had to surrender that land to the government. That was excess land. Okay, there were so many exemptions. Either you got exemption for group housing or pertinent land. So a lot of people got exemptions, but then it used to be a very, very difficult and very tough one to do any large or imaginative project. Just things being whatever, one day they decided that this was a draconian law and really did not lend itself for development. They abolished that act. So it was there from 1976 to about 1999, almost 20 years plus the act was there. And then the stunted growth cut to that late 90s, the Urban Land Ceiling Act got abolished. Once that Urban Land Ceiling Act got abolished, suddenly we were like prisoners out of jail. We could sort of imagine anything and work out something. So I went back to my landowners. I always had this desire, contrary to my, like you said, now, difference of opinion. My brother always was against it. No, it won't work in India. Our people are very different. They won't know how to use it. I don't know whether revenues will come. And I was like hell-bent on doing it. So, in fact, he even brought a real estate professional, CBRE, who said, I'll lease this. You build an office space here, I'll lease it out for you almost instantly. I said, I've done many office spaces, but I don't want to do this. I want to do a mall. Fair enough. We deployed the architect, gave the briefing, and sometimes, when some good wins over, or a good idea wins over not such a good thing. So we went ahead. That's one great thing about us is finally, if it's had to go on, there is support. So we got the architect, got him to design it, and then finally we discovered that you can't build a multiplex on the upper floors of a building. It had to be only on the ground floor. Then the next journey started. It was, during Mr. Krishna's rule as a chief minister, we went to them, cinematographic act has to change, the whole world has changed, there are multiplexes coming up everywhere, and you can't have the prime, because when my architect gave me the first design, the cinema was on the ground floor. I was aghast. I said, how is it that you guys have put it on the ground floor? This is the most premium space. Then he said, sir, please read the act. When I read the act, the rules, I said, okay, we'll have to have the rules rewritten. So fortunately, we had a government that was a little proactive, that listened, and then they asked us to write down the rules, frame it the way. And today, the rules in the Cinematographic Act, what is there, are the ones that is written by us. Except that when they brought the draft rule again, instead of writing multiplex, they had written IMAX. Then again, I had to beat my head on. I said, no, it's not IMAX. IMAX is a projecting system and multiplex is a group of cinemas. So got that also done. In the meanwhile, I had got my plan approved as auditoriums. The law did not sort of stop us from getting auditoriums done. An auditorium can be a place where you could have meetings or you could have had weddings or whatever else, but as far as cinema was concerned, you couldn't have it. So we went through that process, got those changes done in the law. And then, of course, we got some external consultancy. We got an architect from the US who came and gave us the overall thing. And at that time, this PVR was chasing me. He came to know that Prestige is going to build a multiplex in Bangalore. And then he sent a missile to me, an emissary, and then we started talking. You asked me, what is the return? In a mall, I think if you do it well, you'll get a 18-20% return on your investment.
Off the bat.
Yeah. And if you don't get that, there's no sense in doing it. And if you manage it well, you can probably do much better. But we honestly didn't know what was going to hit us. So we opened this mall in the year 2004, February 2004. Unfortunately, I would have been happier because I lost my dad in January 2004. So my dad would have been the happiest. That day when I gave a speech also, I said my dad is somewhere looking from top. Because just about a month later, we opened that mall. The cinemas opened in August. Honestly, we did not know what hit us. We used to get 100,000 people, 70,000 people in a day footfall. It was madness because people hadn't seen this sort of organized retail. Because initially they didn't know what a food court. To do a food court, I had to convince internally. I gave that to my brother-in-law. I said, man, you take the space, you do the food court. But then he said, he was comparing somewhere that business, some few thousands. I said, listen, it's something very different. You haven't understood it. So anyway, finally we did it. And there's no looking back. And that too, those days, it was just a 350,000 square feet space. That is the leasable space. The rest of it with car park. Because my first brief to my architect was, because I used to suffer, you go to a cinema, you never used to get parking. You get to a Rex cinema, you had to literally struggle to park your car. So I said, first give me the parking, then give me the cinema. I think, okay, it's 20 years, but you see, there's no looking back. So many more malls in the city got built. So many more malls in the country got built. It became a sort of a trailblazer. And there are now people who are doing much larger, more bigger formats. Now the whole look and feel is very different because what was relevant then 20 years ago is not relevant today. Today it's all about experience. It's all about more food and beverage, more entertainment, and of course a bit of shopping, or shopping complements it. But then the whole formatting has changed. And now we are building another 10, 11 malls as we go along, another 11 million square feet.
For someone starting off, good thing to explore if they can conceive, raise funding and build a mall?
Sir, Phoenix has done it. Phoenix wasn't in the radar at all. And they were not retailers, but they did it. They've got somebody to fund them. I think they've done a brilliant job. So I think if you look at the mall operators, it is Phoenix who's the largest today. And of course, Nexus is there. They're more financial. They bought it's a Nexus REIT is there, which is large. Prestige, and then afterwards, Brigade has also done some mall. That's what I was asking Nirupa. What made you build the first mall? Maybe a diversity.
Yeah. So
maybe some change.
I think the operating entity also is very crucial, right?
Yeah.
To have that expertise of leasing. And stuff.
I think my dad went to Japan, saw Roppongi Hills, and the whole mixed-use township concept. So I think he was he thought that was the future of cities, right? To create mixed-use townships. So when he had large parcels of land like Brigade Gateway, which was close to 40 acres on CBD limits. He wanted to recreate like a city within a city. So it had the office, the residential, the retail, the hospitality, a school, a hospital, lake, and social amenities.
Amazing.
And I think this concept of live, work, play within our cities is probably the future, because like you were talking about the infrastructure, there's so much of pressure on our infrastructure. Like every 2 years, Bangalore adds about 800,000 people, like which is the size of like a Seattle or something. So there's no way our infrastructure can sort of keep up with the demands of the people and the population. So I think the future is doing mixed-use townships, like little Fountainhead, little idealistic townships.
Now that we have some more moving parts, if I were to start a real estate business and I had an option between a JD apartment with a landowner, start a multiplex, a hotel, or a commercial real estate project, what would I do?
I would still say, please start with some residential for a start.
Get your
Then
money
go
in.
into, or go into
Quickest
office.
job.
Yeah.
Thank you, Uncle. Thank you
Yes.
so much. We don't want to keep you for
Thank
any
you.
longer.
I think
Uncle.
we've finished bang on.
Okay, introductions. Who would like to go first?
You can go first.
Anything. Sure, whoever.
Tell us
Age
a bit,
before beauty.
Tell us a bit about childhood, life. How did you come to being who you are today?
So, Bangalore girl, born and brought up here. Although my mom is from Kerala, dad is from Chikmagalur, which is a coffee plantation place, North Karnataka. Did my schooling here, went to the US, University of Virginia. I was given one option to go to UVA because my sister went there. So they were like, this is where you're going. So applied to one college, did economics there because I feel like you do economics when you don't know what else you want to do in life. So economics is the major for the undecided. Yeah, it's got some math, it's got some analytical skills or whatever. So I did economics, and while I was doing my undergrad, I did a bunch of internships. So PwC in Bangalore and M&A. I did Leela Palace, Bangalore. I did some advertising agency. I was just exploring, like, what do I want to do in life and what am I passionate about and all that. And then got a job out of college with Ernst & Young, so in the risk advisory business. So spent about 3.5 years there in the New York office, DC office, North Carolina office. And while I was doing that, I worked on, as a consultant, you work on different projects. And I worked on this really cool leverage buyout. Apollo was buying out Harrah's Entertainment, which was like a huge casino group. And loved the whole space while I was working on that deal. So I said, okay, let me explore hospitality a little more. I took some evening classes at NYU's Continuing School of Education and Hospitality. Loved it. Decided to apply to Cornell for my master's in hospitality. Did that. And at that time when I graduated, it was 2009. I also did a study abroad in Singapore because I think Asian hospitality is something very different from Western hospitality. So 2009, I think there was a financial crisis happening. I think hospitality everywhere was doing not well, except maybe India, China, and Africa. And 2009 was the year that we were also setting up our first hotel. And it was very coincidental. My dad didn't say, go do hospitality, or it just so organically happened. Because I think as a family, we always discussed buildings. You go to a hotel, you discuss the building. You go to on our travels, etc. So I just used to think about hotels all the time. So I came back in 2009 to set up the hospitality practice. And I did that for a few years. Just took one portion of the business. First it was marketing, then it was legal and contracts, then it was data analytics. So organically just grew my skill set in hospitality for about 5-6 years. Then had my first child, so took maternity leave for 6 months or so, or maybe 4 months. And during that time, I was like, okay, how do I reinvent myself? Because I delegated all my responsibilities. And then I came up with this concept. That time, housing.com was at some $300 million valuation. I think a lot of e-commerce companies were having these crazy valuations, and brick and mortar businesses like ours were with tangible assets and profit making had lower valuations. So I realized at that point of time, we need a play in tech because tech is going to help you grow exponentially. So that's when I set up Brigade Group. It was Asia's first real estate accelerator
What year
program.
was this?
2016. So I joined the business in 2009. So 2016, I decided to, and at that time, I actually wanted to start my own co-working brand because I was like, how do I reinvent myself? And I thought I'll do this one startup of co-working or using spaces more efficiently, just finding little nooks and corners that are not used efficiently and then create a business out of it. And then you realize, the startup world is a very difficult world. So I said, why work with one startup when I can work with 100? So the concept of REIT was invest or mentor, have equity in 100 tech startups that the real estate industry can use. So fast forward 7 years, we're about at 70, 75 companies. So we should get to 100 number in a couple of years. And then one of our CEOs in the office and retail vertical left. He was handling both verticals. And at that point in time, my dad said, why don't you look after the office and retail vertical? So those were two industries which I didn't know anything about. And like I said, I had to learn to understand and love them. And I genuinely enjoy the businesses now. So did that, expanded to office and retail. And then set up a co-working brand as well in 2019.
What is it called?
It's called Buzzworks because all co-working brands must have works or co in it. So it was called Buzzworks.
Only in India, they add the S everywhere. Even for WeWork, everyone here we just call it WeWorks. It's the most annoying thing.
But my brand has the S incorporated into it, so it doesn't get butchered. And then been doing that, just been growing those portfolios. Recently set up a fund, Cat 2AF fund, again to focus more on prop tech. And in the middle, I think along the way, like you started your restaurant business. I think when I came into the hospitality space, I had not worked. I had done a few internships in Four Seasons Singapore, Leela Palace Bangalore, Ritz-Carlton DC, but I had not gotten my hands dirty for a while. So I said I'll set up a couple of restaurants. So I set up High Ultra Lounge in Malleshwaram.
I've been there.
Yeah. And that was one of those things where I went to all the restaurateurs in the city, the top 10 guys, and they all said, no, it's too much of a risk. It's too big. It's too far. It's too this. It's too that. So I said, okay, I'm going to do it and make sure it works. I'm going to make sure it's profitable. So I ran it for a couple of years and then handed over the management to the Sheraton, one of our hotels. So so that's how I've grown my portfolio. So office, retail, hospitality. Now might look into a bit of facility management as well because it's very synergistic with what we do in office and retail.
So what is bread and butter today and what is jam?
In the company?
For you?
They're all bread and butter. Jam is probably facility management. But all three verticals are, if I look at the overall portfolio, 60% of our top line comes from residential and about 35 to 40%, depending on where we are in the cycle, comes from the annuity income portfolio, as we like to call it. So 20% of that is office, another 15% is hospitality, and retail, we have only 3 malls, so about 5% comes from that. And facility management is also growing. I think that's also another 5% we can add to our top line.
Good transition, co-working into Karan.
Yes. You want me to start from the
start from the beginning.
Born and brought up.
Throws the biggest Diwali parties in Bangalore by a mile. 2,000 people.
At least invited. I don't know when we finally show up. But yeah, it's grown. It's actually become a tradition over time, I think, in the city.
So where did you grow up?
I've born and brought up and bred in Bangalore. So I've lived here, pretty much my whole life. Studied here across 2 schools, Vidyashil, Paditi. Grew up riding.
All the spoiled brats are from Aditi, right?
I only went there later in life.
Same. I went to Sophia's, went to a typical convent school and I love that convent education. But I went to Aditi to 11th and 12th.
So studied here. Actually, a lot of our childhood, at least me and my brother, we spent riding so outdoors and like around horses and all of that stuff. As we kind of grew up, we had the Embassy riding school, which was like a huge bit of like a stud farm that my dad had bought, in 96 or something for whatever reason, which is now super crazy. And he lives.
For people who don't know right now,
Yeah.
you know what they're picturing? Mithila, Agnes, Karan, Aditya, Stud Farm, Palace, Diwali party with 2,000 people.
I think you need to like rope back some context. And it's probably putting me in a terrible light. Yes. So that lot of time outdoors, lot of time in like army situations and like, being in that circle, because that was really the people you would compete with, really in like equestrian riding at that time. A lot of my childhood, a lot of my teenage years, I think was, I always felt entrepreneurial, like wanted to find ways to do something, whether it's like small bits of making money in the building. I think one of the things that our parents were very particular about is like every pocket money you have to like sort of earn and do something around it. In my teenage years, it's probably, like we spent a lot of time, I at least in 10th grade, like throwing these parties for our school, for our class and things like that. And I still remember, we like the first thrill of like making money was throwing our 10th grade graduation party, and I made, I don't know, like 40,000 rupees that night, which was huge.
Aditi.
When the next day blew
I'm
it up.
disappointed at Aditi you made so little.
No, he wasn't at Aditi. You said 10th grade. You were in Vidya
No,
Shilp
I
then.
was still in Aditi, but it was like $600 to get in, and you know, like whatever.
40,000 was profit or revenue?
Profit.
Not bad, yeah.
Yeah. And then went to the UK to study at the University of Kent. Just studied business administration. And I think during my last year of college itself, I was kind of done with education and like, going to school. I just was ready to kind of work and do something. So actually in my last year of universities, when I started setting up our hospitality business, which I run with a partner of mine. So we have, a few restaurants in UB City. We have a catering business.
Who's your partners? Mankani.
Yeah, Siddharth Mankani. And now it's small. It's been like 10 years since we started it, and it just continues to operate. So did that for like 2.5 years. Then I full time. And then I decided that I want to come and like join the family business. I wanted to learn what was happening. The business also was growing, quite fast at that point in time. And so I actually spent 2 years post that, what we call, at least between the three of us, the shadow working. So I had a notebook. I used to just sit in every single meeting that my dad was in, travel, take notes at the end of the day, ask him, questions. Why did you do this? Why did you say this? Why are we doing this when you told me that this is X, Y, and Z? And there I got a huge amount of exposure, from buying land, dealing with villagers, and like going through that experience to dealing with someone like Jonathan Gray, Blackstone, private equity. And so a completely wide spectrum of rooms that, I got to be in. And during that stint, I think, and my experience in setting up the hospitality business, I saw that we were building these huge parks for multinational companies and, these large enterprises. And they were also spending so much in the fit outs and how the office experience was, that no one was contributing or no one was building anything for the small and, small startups and, small businesses. And this was also when Bangalore startup scene was about to explode, or was exploding. I mean, Flipkart had just raised the 16 billion round. It was,
What year was this?
2014, 2015, yeah, around then. And so the idea of actually having small space in our larger parks for smaller businesses, my original thought process was like equity for space. That was, the original idea, like a version of an incubator. And then as I was researching and I was, making this huge pitch, like a management pitch to the presentation about this new business that we should look at, WeWork came up a lot when I was, doing a lot of the research. I mean, it was still in the US. They hadn't expanded globally yet. But the concept, the way that WeWork had stacked everything together, which was, design, technology, and like this community layer and this infrastructure, the network for startups was, something that was like exactly like as I was sort of like envisaging it. And coincidentally, this around the same time, few early investors of WeWork actually came to India, and they started scouting for partners because WeWork was looking to expand globally. And these guys had worked in India before, so they felt like WeWork and India would really do well over here. And that's how we ended up going to New York for like a completely separate trip to meet with Blackstone, and we entered a WeWork. And, that was like a life-changing light bulb moment.
That was WeWork peak in the US?
No, it was,
Post-turmoil?
No, much, much before. This was, again, they had only a few offices in New York and one office in London, one office in Amsterdam. They were still valued at like 10 billion, which was crazy. But it was only post us, having that meeting when it really got absolutely crazy. So we went there, we met Adam, we spent about a year and a half almost trying to figure out partnership, because earlier WeWork was actually trying to have multiple partners in India. They were looking at DLF, they were looking at Rahejas, they were looking at us, RMZ. So they were really like exploring, and we kind of said that, look, if you want multiple partners, I don't think we're the people, because this won't work in India with multiple developers as partners. So we started working on our own brand. And that it sort of evolved. They didn't get along with DLF. They didn't get along with Rahejas, or they were much more conservative in the thought process. And Adam was, obviously on this crazy mission. So we went back to them, but the deal was still not happening. We weren't able to agree on terms. Adam was already valuing the business at like 2 billion before us even putting a brick or like $1 billion in, a building in. And so we weren't actually, getting there. And then finally, we realized that his priority, or WeWork's priority, was more China and more Europe than it was India. That's how we kind of proposed that, look, we'll take the brand, give us the ability to use the brand, and we'll invest our capital.
How big is WeWork now?
Globally?
India? Your WeWork?
India, we operate almost like 8 million square foot. We just opened our 60th location last week.
And how many people is that?
It's about a capacity of about 95,000 desks. We have close to about 72,000 members now.
And occupancy on average?
Occupancy right now is probably around like between 75 to 80. But we've added also a lot of capacity in the last few months.
And is this part of Embassy is Embassy the holding company?
Yeah, so Embassy is still the
JV
largest shareholder.
Right.
We started off owning 100% of it, and we've also invested pretty much all of our own capital until 2020, where WeWork put in some money. They put in about $100 million, so they own about 27% of the business.
Is there a standardized number that you spend on square feet after leasing a property?
Yeah, so we spend, and we're in the mid to premium segment of the market, so we spend close to...
You are the most premium, I think.
There are more premium players. I mean,
but small ones.
Smaller. The Executive Center, as an example, is maybe...
But you're on average
premium.
15,000 rupees a seat?
We are closer to 20.
Yeah,
No, but your spend per capex, I remember when they came in, everybody's like, oh my God, they spent X amount per square
we
foot
got
for
it
the fit-outs.
much more efficient. We
But-
spent close to about $2,500 a square
Now.
foot, $2,800 depending on the location.
Initially, when you came, it was all 4,000, 5,000.
Yeah, but there, I think the first two locations we were trying to replicate what was being built in other parts of
Yeah.
the world, and then we localized the supply chain. We understood how to localize the product, but in terms of quality of the space, I would say that we're as good, or if not better, than any other location in the world. So the delta arbitrage of the experience that you get here versus what you get outside maybe of a WeWork is just so massive, which is what I think is driving a lot of the stickiness and also the demand for our spaces. When you look at it in terms of from a multinational spend standpoint, India is still pretty much like $1 rentals. They've been $1 rentals for the last 20 years. So the cost arbitrage and being able to get a space like ours, they're willing to pay a premium because
Hey, this is something I can do, right? As a 20-year-old starting off.
you can. There's like every mom and pop guy opening a co-working space.
What are the financials of it? Say I've managed to raise or borrow 10 crore rupees.
Yeah.
I rent a building on Church Street, which is 10,000 square feet. I spend, what did you say, 3,000 per square feet?
Yeah.
So I spend 3 crores on the interiors.
Yeah.
And then I can fit in a chair for every 100, 150 square feet?
No, it'll be less. So I think the like a big way we bring value or we add value is actually through the design of the spaces, where we're able to have density and make you feel like you have, all of the space. So you're basically paying for, let's say, a 2-person office, but you get access to like a 6-story building, right? Which has meeting rooms. So it's very much a shared economy-ish concept where density plays a huge part. So we are able to almost bring it down to, let's say, 65, square foot per person.
And you have the
right?
hot seat thing. So I don't have a definitive seat, but I can
That's
sit.
a very, very small percentage. It's only about 3% of our entire
But why is
building.
that? That seems to make, on paper, this business model makes so much sense, right?
It's so variable, right? I feel like it's like a hotel. It's like the hotel business where if you give your hot desking rates, if you don't have somebody the next day, if you don't rent it, you lose it. And also, but now I feel like the market is moving more towards managed offices, which is a more stable, lock-ins of 3 years, lock-ins of 4 years, 5 years, so that you know where your income is coming from.
So I would say that's why India and maybe like Indian flex players are doing well. And we actually do everything. We go from a day pass, to like a classic co-working, ready to move in type of space, which can go up to even 1,000 desks or a full building, to a managed office product, which is fully bespoke design, source design, build and operate for you. Like I will do the entire thing from showing you multiple buildings to designing the office to managing it to fitting it out, all for one, amortized sort of like check.
But should I do it if I'm a 20-year-old and I can rent 10,000 square feet?
I think that you need to have a ability to source the funnel also. Like none of it works if you're not able to actually
Fill it up.
right? And that has many factors that come with it. And to her point, at least what we do is we do shorter term contracts as well as long-term contracts. So I like to describe our business basically as like office leasing at hyperspeed, which is everything's happening faster, renewals are coming up faster, growth is happening faster, deals are also happening faster, revenue is also kicking in faster. Like it's a completely in hyperspeed. So unless you have that muscle built, which has taken us, a while, and we also replicated a lot of what we got from WeWork, I think it's a very tough business, which is why I feel like most landlords also haven't successfully been able to do it all over the world, because it is a completely different expertise, and it is a big reason why we built it almost separately from Embassy. Was this ability to have to take space from other developers, to really build it from a DNA and culture perspective, also fully focused around the co-working side of the business.
So if I may add to that, so I feel like if you have 10 crores, you can do a co-working space. And if you had 100 crores, then you would build a full office building. And similarly, like for the restaurant, if you had 10 crores, very easy for you to do two to three restaurants.
Yeah.
But if you had like 100 crores, you could build a hotel. So I
But
feel
what
like,
would be my return? My ROI on...
I think in both in co-working, I think 20% returns is 20 to 25% is possible.
So if I put in 10 crores, I can make 2.
Yes.
And in office also similar.
Office has a
Office they say
longer-
7-8% rental yield, right?
Yeah.
7-8% rental yield, but
So co-working, like the office part is just the rental stack. And your top line and your profit will be, really on the rental stack. And you have obviously this huge cost of the CapEx part of it. We just take leases. Our cost of build out is X, but we have rental, OpEx, the CapEx amortization and, like our slight margin on it. So on the square footage, the realization can be almost like 3 times what it is of just the plain vanilla rental, right? Because you're stacking everything under one.
in office, while you get the annual yield of whatever, 8% or 9%, between 7 to 9%, you actually make your money when you sell it also, or you put a capital value to it. So then you have a cap rate of say 8%, and then you'll make high teens, I would say, before you could make even early 20s.
Right.
But I think with the way land prices going up, now it's like high teens.
Plus there's leverage on it, right?
Yeah, you can get lease rent discounting, and then you have a lot of fungible money to play with.
I'm going to ask you both a bunch of questions around real estate that I have. Either of you can pick or both of you can answer them. How important a role do relationships play in the real estate business? Having dinner with the landowner.
A lot.
Yeah, should we do a rating like 9 on 10, 9.5?
Yeah, 1 to 10. How much?
10?
Yeah, 9.5.
Is that the most important thing which differentiates a successful and unsuccessful?
No, I wouldn't say it's the most important thing, but it is, I think, relationships in any business or most businesses, maybe not in your stockbroking business, but I think it is a huge aspect to it because you get more deals by, say, you have a good relationship with the landowner, he'll talk to other people, and then it's a very small community
I
of
think
people.
that you're really kind of stuck with that partnership for a very extended period of time. It's not a short partnership. It's not something that ends in, a year or two. Like almost each development is its own business. It can, live for however long. If it's office, that's the annuity income that's, coming over decades. If it's resi, there's, at least the cycle to build. So, and I think most businessmen work on relationship. I think most business
But
works.
here it's very specific. I'm thinking if I were a landowner
Yeah.
and Nirupa and Karan came to me, how would I decide who to do a JV with? Because it's not about returns alone, right?
So I don't think you would, suppose, I don't know, you're closer, I don't think you would just give it to whoever's your closer friend. I think you would just weigh in on so many other things, like on the financial conservativeness of the company or the ability or reputation of the company. Has he done XYZ projects? If you want to do office, has he done office before? What's the expertise? What's the funding for it? There's so many other aspects, but obviously in any business, relationships are super important. It's how you get your referrals, it's your reputation, so many other things. But I would not say that, suppose I don't do, even if I'm not friends with you, you still might choose me because maybe products could be better or certain strengths could be better.
And I wouldn't always say it's a wine and dine type
Yeah.
of...
Relationship with politicians.
Yeah.
How important is it?
9.
9.
I would say 9. If you're operating at scale, I would say it's 9.
I don't necessarily think it's as important. I think it's maybe 6 or 7. I don't think you need to know a politician to do well because I feel like getting approvals and stuff is fairly transactional. There's a method to the madness.
Do you think real estate will go the way that many industries in India have, where we have monopolies and duopolies? The big will keep getting bigger until there are 2 or 3 left?
I don't.
No?
So I don't think it can be like monopolistic or duopolistic just because of how the scale of where things are. But there has been a huge consolidation in the market, especially post-COVID. We saw almost 60% of smaller guys like shut shop. And now slowly they're coming up again. But there was a huge move towards the larger players. So the larger players got a larger market share. And that's why you see valuations going crazy
I think
post-COVID.
branded and trust, right? Like that we were talking about. That is a driving factor, but not to say that regional, local developers will not grow and kind of become big in their own city, or it'll be tough to maybe make another DLF, Prestige, Embassy, Brigade. That is it's like decades of work.
But you could get like your Reliance, your Adanis, your Birlas, those houses can enter.
India's maybe one of the places also where the rental jumps are quite fast and quite high, which is unlike other markets. Starting still from a relatively low base. When they see it and this cost arbitrage and so much offshoring and the amount of like demand that exists, if you're able, and also I think developers here, when they started, liquidity was, super hard to get by. You would get only really expensive, super expensive capital, or you wouldn't get funding from the bank and things like that. So I think Blackstone or Tuhan, if I'm not mistaken, for 5 years didn't even put a check in. They just observed the landscape and then finally slowly, forged these partnerships. So India's been very, very successful for them. I think it's been their most profitable market outside of the US.
But also they've come into fairly nascent spaces, right? Like they came into retail, created the first retail REIT, came into office, created the first office REIT, and they've monetized now, of course, getting into industrial. They've been able to monetize in spaces which were not monetizable before.
I have this friend, his name is Marcel Arsenault. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He's like this prolific real estate investor who is 70 plus. He's on my Gates Pledge thing. He's a philanthropist as well. I was in the US recently and he sat me down one day. We were having dinner. We were in Ojai, which is like 100 kilometers from California, let's say. And he made this case for why he is shorting commercial real estate across the world. He was not shorting India per se because he hadn't done enough research, but definitely parts of America, parts of China. And he said culture has changed in a manner that people pricing properties have not taken cognizance of. What do you guys think of that? Culture
what are those
around
changes? Like
work from home, people don't want to spend 1-2 hours in traffic every day. Interest rates in the US for mortgages went from 2-3% to 6-7%. Lots of delinquencies in commercial properties in the US. We had this full pre-AI, we had this bust in the Valley real estate, commercial real estate. You see signs of that in different parts of America today. He had a bunch of reasons. He had like a proper 2-hour presentation that he made. And he is somebody who's always been right. Think in his 50, 60-year investment journey, he's been bang on. He was right pre the subprime crisis.
Are you talking like real estate as a whole or commercial or what?
Real estate as a whole, he has been right. But he was shorting commercial real estate in particular.
I think there are certain markets which have matured so much and it's maybe unclear in this moment of time what's going to happen to those locations. But I believe that if, you take like some city like New York or San Francisco or London and you look at, those towers and that type of real estate, I don't think those will ever, really go out of value, or that will not become places that continue to see people and demand, because there's only one London, there's only one New York.
But there was
downtown.
only one San Francisco and so much there fell 50%, right?
But I don't know, like over a long period of time, if that's necessarily going to, continue to be true. I think there's like a hangover of, of COVID and all of this stuff. But India is like a very, very different part of that growth, or at least like place in that growth, right? We're still not saturated. Supply is so low comparatively to the population. People have come back to work and come back to the office. And that transition still yet to happen. But I think most private equity guys, including Blackstone and things like that, if you see, have allocated out of commercial to other asset classes within real estate, data centers, warehousing, residential as a cycle. So it's probably a cyclical thing is my feeling.
So my view is that, in the US, of course, there is about 1 billion square feet of grade A office space that is lying empty. So I can see why he would think that way. But I just feel that we've gone through this whole thing of, okay, what is the future of office space? And I mean, the number of panels we've done on office is dead, it's work from home going forward, is just a lot. But what we've seen now is, of course, the whole return to office. And everybody has gone through the whole work from home. They're coming back to return to office. And we've been in touch with all the large e-commerce guys, MNCs from the US, etc. And everybody's seeing value in being back in the office. And India is going to have its probably most successful year of office leasing. I think just in the first half of this year, some 34 million square feet of office space has been transacted. And that's half the year. Second half of the year is usually has more transactions. So we'll probably hit 70 million square feet. And I still don't know if I can say, okay, the office segment will stay there in eternity to come. But I feel like it is strong, at least for the next 10 years, 10 to 15 years. I don't see it going out of fashion at all.
What happened to prefab? I remember this whole boom.
Katera.
Yeah,
With
Katera.
Katera.
Faisal sold his
Kef.
company to them.
Yeah,
Kef,
Kef.
yes. Richard used to work for Kef.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that would be the next big thing.
Yeah.
And I thought this is it, man. Like,
But prefab,
going prefab is the way to
is,
go.
I mean, China
But when
builds-
sorry, I'll just finish
Yeah.
my point. But when you look at it, while you can cut your the timelines by almost a third, the cost was also like 3 to 4x higher. And also you can't, knowing how Indian construction is done and how planning is done, there's a lot of on-site changes. And you can't be even like half a millimeter wrong, right? Because if you're even half a millimeter wrong, you'll have constant seepages. So there's no room for error. And I don't think we've reached that level of perfection. And since labor is still cheap, you can't, people weren't willing to pay the price for prefab. And you also need large volumes in order to make the machinery and the factory work.
Yeah. I think China does prefab quite well. They're able to put up hospitals and apartment buildings and all within days and months. I just don't know if we have the execution capability, and the labor cost here is still so cheap that it still just makes sense to put people on the
But
side.
they're going
like
up
with-
fast, right? Labor costs?
It's still under control, I would say. I mean, yeah, it's still under control.
What about cash in the real estate ecosystem? Like,
about it?
if I go further off to tier 2, tier 3 towns, it gets progressively worse. Do you think most black money in India is still sitting in real estate? I suspect it is.
I feel it's drastically reduced. I mean, see, us being a public listed entity, almost everything is check. Everything is check.
Where is all
GST.
the black money in India sitting? Give me one word answer. Real estate.
I wouldn't say
Where else?
manufacturing, gutka, a lot of gutka.
Gutka will be sitting in Dubai.
I feel it's not with your large entities, right? It's with the smaller, unorganized sector. It's not with the large. I mean, we can't.
But that smaller unorganized is the larger chunk of India. No?
Yeah.
Organized is quite tiny. Right?
But it's
Organized, yeah,
like,
it's like an 80-20, so
I think
20% is organized.
It's been reducing a lot.
Senior living, what do you think of it as an opportunity?
So I think great opportunity, but one learning that we had was that when you just have like senior living if you just do senior living as the only thing as a project, I don't think it's as successful because old people don't want to be surrounded by other old people, right? Because if I'm old and I need help, I don't want to call another elderly person. Like I need a young, fit body. So what we've realized is when you do larger townships, you have one building or one tower for assisted living or senior living. But they like to be surrounded by younger kids, dogs, middle-aged people, because that's who they can call on for help if they ever need anything, So
Super underserved.
Right?
So there's no one really, doing anything. And I guess it's just you have this notion that India is just a young, country. But
No,
there's
we're growing old fast.
Yeah, exactly. So, and no one is really catering.
We can even become a real...
there are a couple of people focused on it. But like I said, I don't know if it's...
Scale.
Yeah, because we tried doing, just senior living and it didn't work. We had to sort of modify the plan to have only one tower as senior living. Otherwise, old people don't want to just be surrounded by other old people.
We're doing it in a township.
Yeah,
basically, like
township
she said,
makes sense.
which
That it's integrated.
A friend of mine does this at scale, Adarsh.
Adarsh does Primus.
Yeah. Adarsh will be happy only.
Yeah.
20 people will Google Primus. Primus, more than 20. Okay, on the flip side, if I am unable to start a business in real estate and I want a job, what skill sets will you hire for and how much salary will you pay me?
Okay, so real estate, I think
I'm
has...
younger and more hardworking and ambitious.
I think there's a whole gamut of job roles that you can take, right? Ranging from, of course, the basic is engineering, whether you're a civil engineer, structural engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer. Those are all roles that builders like us will hire. And then you have like any corporate, you'd need your marketing functions. You need sales or leasing, HR, PR, lawyers. You need liaison guys. You need architects, interior designers, project managers. So there's a whole gamut of them. I think initially real estate used to be, maybe I would say 10, 15 years ago, not a very sexy business. And the kind of people we could hire were not from the best schools. But I think that's changing now. And you're able to hire from your IITs, you're able to hire from your IIMs, ISB.
Is there some like part-time course I can do to make me more hireable or internship?
You can just work with a builder.
As an intern?
As an intern. But honestly, I feel...
If I email Nirupa at Brigade and say I want to be an intern, will you consider
Yes, I will.
it? Yeah? What are the odds?
I'm hiring in my treasury team. I don't know, where anyone else is going, but straight into the treasury team.
He's talking about unknown face and figure.
Yeah.
Like I'd put you... it depends on what your interests are, but I've had so many people intern. Some want to just shadow me. I don't allow too much of that because I don't like to be shadowed. I don't want my calendar to be known and whereabouts to be known. But in REIT, we'll put you in, if you want to work with tech and startups, you want to work with marketing project, you want to work with, if you're an engineer, we can give you an internship there too. But we started hiring from your IITMs, ISBs, IIMs, because we want those kind of people to start.
And will you pay as well as startups and tech companies?
So that's a tough one. Startups and, tech companies
Startups
go
don't pay anything. We sell you the hope of ESOP.
Yeah.
No, but depends what type of
I think now things have sort of mellowed down a bit. There was a time when I was like, their CTOs would be more than our CFOs and CEOs. But now I think things have mellowed down.
Is there a different hierarchy? Does CFO come above CTO in real estate?
Yeah.
There's no CTOs in real estate.
Right.
By the way.
We've started we are looking at tech as a big angle. Even though like real estate and construction spend less than 1% of their top line on IT, which includes your laptops and SAP licenses and Microsoft licenses. So it's hardly anything on tech if you really look at it. But I think that's slowly changing.
Right.
A lot of investment into going paperless and using AI for better marketing returns, etc.
Any AI implementation in real estate?
We have, at least at the WeWork level, we using a decent chunk now. We have our own we use it for design, so to do like our layouts, clash detection, for MEP type of design. We're using it for our inside sales team. So a chat bot, support bot. We are using it. I mean, I've made at least like a big chunk of the team at least have chat GPT licenses when they're, doing research. Our innovation team uses it like a decent chunk. But I would say that we are using it maybe more than most people in real estate, but also because our business is slightly like different.
Right.
Yeah. But still, and whatever, creative, our brand team uses it a bit to do that stuff.
Yeah, lots of AI for marketing. Like, how do you spend that marketing dollar better? Again, also chatbots to help and enhance customer experience. There are even chatbots to do your calls, like your 1-800 number calls. We're also using AI to look at safety and security, like using cameras to detect any potential threats and issues. A lot of video analytics, behavioral analytics in malls, busy spaces. Okay, somebody behaving funny. So quite a few uses.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the main outcome we do this for is to get more young people into entrepreneurship. Okay, we do it obsessively, and we do something that will help that community at the end of each show.
Yeah.
So it's either by giving money to a young company which we see promise in. It could be giving someone time of yours to shadow you. It could be somebody who interns in your treasury team.
Yeah.
So we'll figure it out amidst ourselves. I'll catch Irfan uncle also. We'll make him give some time.
Yeah.
And we will go out and look for some really smart young kids who want to work, boys and girls who want to work in real estate. We'll find them and we'll do something. We'll put this out later. We'll discuss offline. But thank you guys for doing this. This has been
Thank you.
a long time, 5 hours of speaking, 6 hours.
Wow.
So thank
4
you.
hours was it. We just got the last 2.
Things they outsource. Being such giants. Are there any services that you guys outsource?
Are you asking that or should I answer?
Nikhil, you want
What are the things you outsource? You guys are going to hear something for the first time ever. Being such large companies, what do you outsource?
Quite a few things.
Really? Yeah, a lot.
I feel like the role of a builder is to be like a project manager. So we're just managing everything, but we subcontracting the laborers. While we have architects to oversee the whole design development, you're outsourcing the actual drawings, etc., to other architects. Interior designers and lawyers, we have in-house lawyers, but you outsource like title opinion and all the legwork to external lawyers. So everything I feel is you have marketing guys to monitor other marketing agencies. So I feel like our role as a builder is to like project manage all these various entities. So everything is actually outsourced. We just have people to manage these different sections and entities.
Alrighty, done guys. Super. Thank
Good,
you
thank
everyone.
you.
You guys were all super patient. They're used to
Very
it.
seasoned though.
Hey, one thing I forgot, marketing. How did I forget that? A big part of a real estate company becoming a brand is a factor of marketing. What kind of marketing helps in selling a high value product like an apartment or a commercial space?
I think it's
Brand everywhere, plastered on the city.
Newspapers still
That's
Yeah.
why,
work.
yeah.
Billboards, airport billboards, which is why you'll see everything that you land is like real estate.
I mean, that's why builders, I think, when you
Coming
look at
out.
the newspaper, it's only builders, magazines,
Yeah.
newspapers,
It's
radio,
like if you look at it,
billboards.
over 7 days, probably builders, IPO page, then builders again, some IPO listing.
I think
But
people have
No
safety.
performance marketing.
there is now a lot. There is like a lot more digital marketing spend happening.
No, one is
But-
that, yeah.
But I again, the mindset is still very traditional in everything that, happens within real estate, unless there's like fresh blood and like someone younger coming into the business and trying to push technology, push like, better ways of doing things.
No, but I think it's also
That trust thing is still...
referrals.
Yeah.
I would say referrals are a big part, like 1/4 to maybe even 1/3 sometimes.
Do you incentivize referrals?
Yeah.
By?
So commission, if you're a registered broker, then you get a commission.
What if I buy an apartment in Brigade and I bring a friend to buy another?
You will get either if you have an apartment that you're also buying, you could get a discount on that. But if you want a commission, you'll have to register yourself as
But otherwise, you'll give me a TV or a fridge or something. No?
I can't incentivize you like that. So if you register yourself, and there are some other ways actually that you could do this incentivization in kind. There are some companies that help you do that. So one is referrals, one is channel partners, so brokers, and then the third is just outreach.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
GCCs. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are global capability centers? GCCs.
Done.
It's really what your, Accentures and TCS has all started with, which was really for large companies trying to digitize, offshoring basically. But today I think post-COVID opened up to not just the large businesses, but pretty much any business, whether you're like 100% company, 200% company. A lot of them actually start with us at, WeWork, where they start with maybe like a small amount of desks as they enter India. But it's essentially all digital transformation, product development, and back-end services that companies are seeing the cost arbitrage of, hiring and taking real estate in India, purely because of the talent pool, English-speaking, highly skilled engineers that you can't get, anywhere else in the world. And I think today the output has increased so much, so drastically, that an engineer here is as good as a Silicon Valley, type of engineer. So what used to be BPOs and, just call centers are now full stack product development, cybersecurity, R&D teams. Mercedes as an example, the entire unit, the entire interactive system in every Mercedes car gets built, out of India. So it's moved up the value chain, and post-COVID, I think companies have realized that I don't need to be housed in America or Europe. I can have a more dispersed workforce, which is a big reason why commercial real estate in India is booming still. It's just that flow that's coming from all over the world.
So even like 20 seats, a company taking 20 seats can be called a GCC as long as they're doing the kind of work he mentioned. And now the reason why GCCs keep coming up is because from the commercial office take-up, they're taking up almost 28 to 30% of your office space. I think now co-working was at 25, 26%. It's come down to 21%. IT has actually come down to maybe 10 to 15% from new space, new office take-up. And a lot of the India-facing companies are the remaining 40-odd%. So I think GCCs are really helping the whole office market sustain its shine, I would say.
Yeah.